All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 3:08 a.m. And of course, today's is the 7th of July, 2025. Yes, Texas is still going through it. They're still finding people. And all I can say is God bless Texas. And hopefully, God can console those people who have lost uh, a loved one because it is definitely a devastating situation. Okay. So all we could do is just pray for Texas, hope everything falls into place, hope everything falls in line in Texas, and hopefully there can be, I don't know, something better in future where people can get to know about this floods days before so everybody can evacuate before time because sometimes these floods just go really fast, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, all of a sudden the entire house is taken away by the flood. You just think it's going to rain for 30 minutes and all of a sudden your home is gone. So your church is gone, your post office is gone, the supermarket is gone. So all I can say is God bless Texas and please say a prayer. Please say a prayer for Texas. It is absolutely devastating. And the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, is going to do an update here, which happened yesterday afternoon. We're going to check that out. And of course, President Trump also gave a remark on what's going on in Texas. And there's been emergency relief funds for the people of Texas who were affected. I think it's up to 70%. So that's very good, absolutely good. So if you lost your house, if you lost your store, or a lot of people have lost stuff. Your ranch, your farm, whatever, your RV park, whatever. Governor of Texas would be giving us the update here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, independent, progressive, liberal, conservative, it does not matter. This is an American issue. So please be nice and be kind in the comment section. Thank you so much. You know what time it is? It is your boy Genesis. Welcome to the Genesis Show. Enjoy.
All right, hello again, everyone. I'm Frederica Whitfield in Atlanta. We continue to watch the press conference there coming out of Austin, Texas, and we heard a variety of things. You heard from the Department of Public Safety there saying they have ongoing concerns about high water, unconfirmed wall of water that still might be contributing to some of a variety of tributaries there. It is continuing to rain there, but again, unconfirmed wall of water, and so they're asking people to still stay away from certain areas. And you heard from the Texas governor there, Greg Abbott, who says they continue to search for anyone involved in the storm. The governor went to Camp Mystic. He says it was nothing short of horrific. That is an area where they are continuing to look for a number of campers, 11 still missing from that camp. And you heard the governor there confirming 59 deceased from Kerr County alone and another 10 confirmed deceased from other areas and 41 overall known missing. We've got a team of reporters there in Texas, including Isabel Rosales, who is there from Center Point, Texas. And I understand Ed Lavandera is also in Ingram, Texas. We'll get to him momentarily. To you, Isabel, what are you hearing from that area there? What are the largest concerns? Are people also concerned, whether it be from persons who are missing or even this unconfirmed wall of water in tributaries nearby?
Fred, it's exactly that is the biggest concern right now that's top of mind. It's this wall of water. We were just by a tributary of the Guadalupe River over here at Center Point in front of the fire department where we've been all day with hundreds of volunteers from all over Central Texas just combing through all of that rugged terrain looking for either any signs of life or any victims of this flooding event, when suddenly we saw one of these cruisers from Kerr County, a sheriff's deputy, get on the radio telling everyone to leave, get out. And then we started seeing people rushing toward their cars and packing up, and that's when we heard from volunteers that water was apparently building up north and there were major concerns that it was coming this way. We also then shortly after that got this text message: an emergency alert, severe. It says right here, high confidence of river flooding at North Fork of River, move to higher ground. So it's not that people were in a panic, but they packed up hundreds of volunteers and then moved to higher ground, and that's where we're at right now, where you can see a deputy kind of directing traffic. From what I've heard, he's only allowing people near the river, people who actually live there, but we saw a line of cars leaving from that area. I spoke with a firefighter shortly before our crew evacuated, and he says, hey, we're just not taking any chances. We don't think that this is what's going to happen now is what we saw over Friday overnight into the weekend, but still, we learned our lesson. We're not taking any chances. We're taking this super seriously. Other volunteers from other towns, including Comfort and nearby here in Central Texas, said they got the same call. So all of these volunteers have gotten out. Fred.
All right, Isabel, well, we're going to check back with you. CNN senior national correspondent Ed Lavandera also with us now from Ingram. And so, Ed, what's the story there?
Well, Frederica, the line of cars you see behind me, this is Highway 39, which leads from Ingram to Hunt, and that is where the North Fork of the Guadalupe River connects with the main Guadalupe River. And we were there just about 30 minutes or so ago when authorities started frantically urging everyone to evacuate the area immediately. They were telling everybody just to scramble out of there as quickly as they could. Of course, there's a great deal of concern because there's so many volunteers, people making their way back to this area to begin the cleanup process and that sort of thing. But this line of cars is a massive traffic jam. We just emerged out of this. And it is a line of cars about 6-7 miles all the way back toward Hunt, Texas, where everybody is trying to make their way out of this. This is where the roads kind of open up and you can go in a few more different directions to get to safety. But it is what they described to us in the moment there is that there's a wall of water coming. They were urging everybody to get out of there. It wasn't clear. We didn't see any immediate change to the river, the different parts of the river there in that area that they were the most concerned about at the moment when we started evacuating that area as well. But right now, what is unfolding is this long line of cars, and this line will go basically all the way back to Hunt, Texas, where those authorities and that branch of that river will connect with the Guadalupe River. So we will keep our eyes on what continues to unfold here. But right now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people trying to escape this potentially dangerous situation.
Continued heightened concerns there about these flood waters. Ed Lavandera, Isabel Rosales, thank you so much. We'll check back with you. We're going to continue our coverage. That also includes the ongoing search for the many victims of the flooding in Central Texas.
Ladies and gentlemen, all we could do is pray right now. Of course, the Commander-in-Chief, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, has declared emergency in the area that this situation is happening, the flooding, and is granted relief for them. I think about 70% for every affected person. So that's good news for them. But the bad news is at least 80 dead and 41 missing. That's just out of this world. Can you imagine 80 people gone and 41 missing? Like, you don't even know if they're alive or dead. So please, doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, independent, liberal, conservative, progressive. At this point, it doesn't matter. You know, you just got to say your prayers for the people affected. Here we go.
Hearing all manner of stories about narrow escapes, and we actually heard from a group of friends that escaped the flash flooding in Caryville, Texas, after they were rescued by two strangers. I spoke to Ricky Gonzalez this morning. He told CNN that he and his 12 Friends were trapped inside their Airbnb. This is video that they took. Floodwaters rising, sweeping one of their cars away. This is what he shared about how they escaped.
We're on the second floor of the Airbnb, and the water was coming up to the floor, so it was going really quickly, and we were stranded. We were struck. There was one of the trucks that was merged underneath the house and was banging up against the pillar. So I was very worried that the house was either going to fall or the water was going to continue to rise. So everything happened so quickly. What felt like 2 minutes was actually a 2-hour ordeal for us. And we were saved by a family who just so happened to be driving by to check on some property that they had. And I was looking out the window talking with my sister, just let her know what's going on. And she saw me, I waved at her, and they went to the front. They were able to access the house, and they were telling us, the house was in bad shape. We need to get out. And thankfully, by that time, the water was going down enough for us, waist deep, to be able to get out. And this family, the Garcia family, Paula and Leo, they took us in, they fed us, they made sure we were dry. They drove us all the way to the San Antonio airport so we can rent vehicles, since we didn't have any vehicles anymore. And they were just our
I'm just gonna say something right here. A lot of people are blaming the Trump administration for this disaster in Texas, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be. But I remember last year when, we were streaming about what was going on, how I was displaced by the Hurricane Helene, and I had to move my family like for 10 days before we came back and, clean the smelling house because the fridge was totally messed up because there was no power for about 10 days. And of course, when I was streaming about what was going on, some people were blaming Joe Biden as well. So this is how politics works. Of course, Trump is going to have to bear whatever comes with this because he will be blamed. His administration will be blamed, and it's just part of it, okay? Because last year, when Hurricane Helene came about, people blamed Joe Biden. So this is happening in Texas. Even if it's not Trump's fault, he is the president of the United States. It's just natural for people to blame Trump. So I'm not mad about it. I'm just happy that he's responded and he did it swiftly. So it's just part of it. They're going to blame Trump. So get over it.
our guardian angels for this trip, and so many different things had to happen right on this trip in order for us to be safe. The house next door was swept away, the poor little children in the camp, and everyone. It's just, we're one of the great, the lucky ones, and we're extremely grateful for all the local support there in Kerrville. And despite everything going on, people still have a heart and are willing to help out strangers.
Ricky and his friends are so lucky to be alive, and they're so lucky that folks like Paula and Leo Garcia are out there. They join us now live along with their daughter, Rachel. Leo and Paula, thank you so much for being with us. What more can you tell us about how you first came across Ricky and his friends? Ricky had told me that when you came across him, he was on FaceTime with his sister, and he was contemplating what he should tell her if it was the last time he was going to be speaking with her.
Well, we were going to check on a family property, and coming in on the west side, well, we quickly realized that the water was still kind of high, and I decided that we were going to go back around to the east side. So we drove around, and coming to our property, we noticed that everything was gone. There was 2 campers there in our shed that we had there. Not really a shed. It was a family gathering place that we had there. It was also gone. So we just continued forward a little more, and I thought I'd seen somebody at the second story window. And I told my wife, Paula, I said, I'm pretty sure I saw somebody in there. So I backed up, and we saw Ricky. And so she got out and asked if they were okay. And you could tell they were in shock. So we got out, as well as my daughter, Rachel, and we all got out and just went over to the house and helped them down. I think they were just so much in shock that they did not realize that the water had receded enough where they could have walked out. But I mean, I get it. I mean, they were in shock.
Yeah.
And I think they were just happy to see somebody that could get to them.
100%. And you see the video, and it just looks terrifying with all that debris moving through the water. Paula, what was going through your mind as you were trying to help evacuate Ricky and his friends?
Well, we were kind of shocked a little bit that there were a few people on the road that were kind of standing around. We were a little shocked that somebody hadn't already helped them, but then we realized it was because those people were in shock also. They were stunned from what they had just experienced. And we were pretty sure that the water had just receded enough for us to be able to walk up to the house. We were walking through water to get to the house, but it was, like 5 deep. And so we were just trying to remove debris from the steps, and it was still, even though they could walk out, it wasn't like they were just like on a leisurely stroll. They had to climb over debris that was in the water, and you couldn't see anything in the water. And of course, they were all shaken from the experience that they had just been through. And they had 5 animals with them too, and we were a little concerned about if the animals would let us help them, because they were traumatized as well. So anyway, the animals were very cooperative, and we got everybody out and took them back to the house and fed them, and just tried to do what we do best, and that's to just take care of people. That's what we like to do.
Absolutely.
I love hearing that. I actually heard that Ricky said that it was one of the dogs that was with him that belonged to one of his friends, Nash, who started pawing at the door and actually got them to realize how bad the waters had gotten. Rachel, I wonder, hearing your folks say that helping people is what they want to do, what they do best. I mean, it's got to be inspiring that you were part of this moment to help these folks in a really bad time.
Yes, it definitely was. We've always grown up, just loving on people and helping as many people as we can. That's what we've always been taught, and that's something we will continue to do. And if it was my family that was out there, I would hope that people would help them. So we are going to do whatever we can to make sure we can help other people.
And lastly, I just wonder what message you wanted to say something, Leo?
No, it also helps that Rachel is a nurse, so it's in her blood one way or another. I mean, she was there, but we were there. We're not any hero. We just happened to be there, and we're going to help out. Right place, right time. We're going to help whoever it is. I don't care who you are. We're going to help you if you are in need of help.
I know you said, Leo, that you don't consider yourself a hero. I know Ricky and his friends certainly consider you all heroes. Paula, Leo, and Rachel, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
More help is pouring in. World Central Kitchen has set up in the area and has already served thousands of meals. With us now is Samantha Elfmont. She's the response director for World Central Kitchen. Samantha, thank you so much for being with us. What can you tell us about where operations stand right now?
Thank you, Boris. Well, actually, as we're checking in here, I'm at the Emergency Operations Center. World Central Kitchen, we're the only organization here. We made sure, along with another local catering group, that folks were fed here today. In short, first responders are beginning to recover more bodies today. But with us at World Central Kitchen, our job is to make sure people are fed. Those families that are grieving, those families who have lost their homes, and first responders, we are here wherever a meal is ready. When anyone needs a meal, we are here.
And Samantha, what are your teams seeing here in Kerrville? Can you take us through some of the challenges that you've had in trying to provide help to folks?
So, of course, so we were here day one on the ground on Friday, making sure that families were fed at those reunification centers, those families that were able to be saved and reunited. Things have changed very much so here on Sunday. We are making sure that those first responders here behind me are able to get out in the field, work all day and night to reunite those families. But also, we are here changing operations daily. I just got word that there's more road closures. So where we were going to be providing meals today, we might have a hard time getting to, but we will get those meals delivered and on time, hot and fresh. We always use local vendors. But we continually on the hour, we have a safety and security team telling us where to go and how to get there.
And Samantha, I wonder what you're hearing from the folks that are coming to you for help.
What we're hearing is just horrible stories. There was a family that we met last night. Their brother passed away, unfortunately, breaking a window and trying to save them. We made sure that they had hot meals last night. We are hearing that people have lost their homes, or those who have homes have no electricity. So obviously they aren't able to cook. People forget about themselves in times like this. We need to make sure that people are fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner and are able to take care of themselves, get that nourishment they need, because these days are long and we don't know what's ahead.
Yeah, so such an important thing to keep in mind. I wonder what you think the most significant need is right now. What resource could you do more with right now?
So right now today, we actually discovered that Texas Management has a plan to feed their own and these first responders, but there are quite a few volunteer firefighters. So for instance, we're giving them lunch today. Those on horse, right down in Ingram, we were able to just pass out sandwiches so that they can throw those in their pockets easily. We want to make sure they're fed. But today is our day, we call it the last mile, where we find those who haven't been able to be reached, that they have meals and then can get to the resources they need. So we are there for the children, of course, in this horrible, and I'm a mom myself, unimaginable time, but we want to make sure these local residents are also taken care of.
Yeah, Samantha Elfmont, thank you so much for what you're doing.
This is what we can do, like support by donating or, sending food or whatever you could do. And your prayers, if you don't have, money or, resources to do stuff like this that she's doing, you could just send your prayers to them. But, it's just wild that we blame the administration for natural disasters. Some people even say this is not a natural disaster. And that was the same thing that was said last year during the Hurricane Helene. So it's like, okay, this is going to keep happening, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. It's just how it goes. Crazy. Just crazy.
I want to get an update from Kerrville now with CNN's Isabel Rosales. Isabel, set the scene for what you're seeing there today.
Yeah, Boris, good afternoon. So I am in Center Point. This is just southeast of Hunt, where Camp Mystic is located. And right behind me is a tributary of the Guadalupe River. There are hundreds of volunteers from Bernie, from Ingram, from Center Point, from all over Central Texas who have come out here donating their time. They have shovels with them, they have walking sticks, and they're going into this scene of devastation, essentially following the water here. If we pan over here to my left, you can see the areas that they're searching for and why it is so grueling and slow. They have gloves on. You're talking about teams of like 5 people lifting up these heavy limbs to search every nook and cranny that they can to make sure that they're not missing anyone. I heard from several of the volunteers that in this area alone, just yesterday, several victims were unfortunately found. They're not just looking for these victims, they're looking for things like this, Boris. You see that over here, a personal item, a jacket. Whenever they find something like that, a piece of clothing, they set it to the side, they note it, and they told me that they're waiting for essentially cadaver dogs to take the next steps. I can hear the sound of chainsaws in the air as they're both working to clear all of this mess up so they can search even better and continue their search for these victims. There's all sorts of challenges here, from, you can see this right over here, down barbed wire. You see this? All over the ground. It's been everywhere, to fire ants, nature here, to the slippery mud all over the place. These are the challenging conditions that they're having to go through. Here are some more volunteers. And this is an all-day affair from sunrise to sunset. I've also seen people on kayaks in the water and up above as well with drones, folks on the ground with dogs. It is just incredible the amount of manpower out here. People on horseback even, one of which is a father, broke down in tears telling me how he knew he had to come out here once he heard about those kids at Camp Mystic. Listen to what else a different volunteer had to say about the massive search and rescue efforts happening right now.
Everyone's just trying to do their part. You know, there's it's a horrible sense of search, right? Because you're searching for something you hope you don't find, but at the same time, you know, if you've got family members that are missing, you hope there are people out there looking for them. You know, and if you bring them that closure, then that's something that counts for something.
And I think it's also important to relate just how expansive this search site is. You can see all these volunteers, they're out for miles, over 60 miles covering the Guadalupe River. And if you can see over here this way, if we pan this way, you can see these massive downed trees. It kind of gives you a sense of just how powerful these currents really were. And if you keep going in that direction, you're gonna see a bridge. You see that? They were working to clear that out so rescuers could even get into this area. But you see those ginormous tree limbs just like leaning over the bridge. That goes to show you just how high the water went, how powerful the currents were, and how easily, if you look down this way, how easily it is to miss a person that was taken even for miles by the currents and could be, their body unfortunately, stuck in small little holes like this. This is why this process is so grueling, and they're telling me so slow, but they understand how important it is to get these families answers and to give them closure as well. Boris.
Yeah, so important, especially at this sensitive time when there are families out there still waiting to find out exactly what happened to their loved ones. Isabel Rosales, thank you so much for that reporting. We are now learning more about the lives lost in this catastrophic flooding. 27-year-old Julian Ryan died while trying to rescue his fiancée, 2 kids, and his mother from these rising waters on Friday. Julian's fiancée says the group was trapped inside their mobile home near the Guadalupe River in Kerr County. And when the water got too high, Julian punched out a window to try to get his family and their pets up to the roof. The broken glass apparently cutting his arm, and he suffered a wound that turned out to be fatal. We're joined now live by Julian's sister, Connie Salas, joins us now over the phone. Connie, first and foremost, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your little brother Julian died, a hero trying to get your mom and his young family to safety. I just wonder how you are processing what happened.
We're processing it as it's still unreal. It's still a dream. We want to wake up from it, and we're actually living like that's the truth.
Yeah.
Like he's
Connie,
never going to walk through that door again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were saying.
He would never walk through that door again and be that funny person he is, because we lost that person.
And Connie, how is his fiancée and the rest of the family, how are they holding up?
They're not holding up too good, because my mom, they were literally panicking and about to drown, and my mother was still holding up her son, holding him up, and he looked at her and said, "I love you." So my mom has that heartbreak of looking at her son and telling him goodbye, holding him while he takes his last breath.
Connie, could you give us an idea of what exactly happened, how they learned that something was wrong, and then how he was able to manage to get them out?
What happened is we heard a gurgle in our tub and our toilet, and by the time we looked and seen and what the gurgle was, the water was already coming out of the tub and out of the toilet, and by the time we had no time to actually physically save ourselves, it just came. The water rose. I lived right behind him, like 20 steps away, and me and my brother talked before this happened, and so for us to say our last goodbyes and say both of us said we're scared and didn't hear nothing, talk to each other after that. Our last words were, I'm scared, and he says, me too. We lost everything.
Connie,
we lost our house.
Yeah. I wonder how you're going to tell your brother's sons about him. What is it that you want them to know about him? What is it that you want the world to know about your brother?
I want the world to know he went out as a hero. He went out as a hero to save his family, and I will let my nephew know and his other kid know, everybody. I want not just the kids, and I will speak to the kids the same way, but I want everybody to know, and the kids, that he didn't die in vain. He died saving you. He took his life not worried about his life. And he sat there and did something that no one else was doing, not 911, not the rescue, not nobody. He took it in his own hands to save y'all. And y'all need to make a life of yourself, because your dad saved y'all. So y'all do what y'all got to do, but reach for the stars the way that your dad wanted you to. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, Connie, he died helping the people that he loved most. I also wanted to ask you about how they were able to survive by floating on a mattress until help could arrive. I also understand that you were afraid that you weren't going to make it. Tell us
we weren't going to make
what that
it.
was like, and how did you manage to stay safe?
How did we managed to stay safe? Julian managed to save his family, and it was great. But at the end of the day, I was scared at the end of the day. I had to call my kids, and I was like, I made the worst phone call that I would ever have to make to somebody. And I thought I was a mother, and they're going to have to bury a mother. And I told my kids, I said, I love you. We're about to die. We're in a flood, and I don't know if we're going to get out.
Wow. Connie, I am so sorry for your loss. Our hearts go out to you and your family, and I'm just so sorry about what happened to your brother, but he was clearly a hero that he was able to save the people that mattered most. Thank you so much for sharing his story with us.
God bless that man. You know, things happen in this world, you don't even know how to explain them. Like this story right here. I mean, look, he didn't deserve this, but this happened to him. And this just brings me back to um the movie Eagle Eye. It was about 17 years ago. I think it was in 2008. Where there was a person calling this guy and calling this girl on the phone, and she was telling them exactly what to do. And it's like, when people say floods like this, natural disaster like this is man-made, then why, is there God? If man can do this, it's like, okay, so what is God's job if you guys have given man this much power that man can cause a flood like this? Then when I think about the movie Eagle Eye, it's like, what is man not capable of? You know? But look, it's definitely above my pay grade, but I just know in my heart that nobody's God. But then again, it's above my pay grade. All right.
As of 9 a.m. this morning, we've recorded 59 deceased in Kerr County. Among those who are deceased, we have 38 adults and 21 children. 18 adults pending identification and 4 children are also pending identification. At present, there are 11 Camp Mystic campers unaccounted for, along with 1 counselor. We extend our sincerest condolences and prayers for every single family affected by this tragedy. And we continue to work around the clock and reunite these families. We will continue to search efforts until everybody is found. Our missing person call center is open, and those reporting missing loved ones can call the number 830-258-1111. I'll repeat one more time, 830-258-1111. Please follow the Kerr County Sheriff's Office and City of Kerrville Facebook for your latest information. At this time, I'll turn it over to our City Manager, Dalton Rice.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you all for being here today. Everyone in the community is hurting, and we know many of you are locals or have some local connections here, so please keep everybody in your thoughts as we continue to navigate this very challenging time for our community. Search operations continue. Starting about 0600 this morning, we started putting boots on the ground. We have increased our number of personnel that are navigating the really challenging shores along the bank line, but we are continuing to make progress from west to east as we continue operations. What we really need from y'all is to really help us get the word out. We know that people want to volunteer, but what we're starting to see is personal drones that are flying. With these personal drones that are flying, that is a danger to aircraft, which risks then further operations. So if you could, please pass the communication along that we need to keep these personal drones out of the sky. We have drones and assets flying. We want to continue to do that. For volunteers and donations, we do have a phone number, 830-465-4794. We can give you that number after, but if you want to volunteer, if you have donations, please contact that number and they will help get everything out. We have families who need to be reunited, and we are continuously making effort to make sure that our families are reunited. We want to continue to work together with our community. We appreciate everybody here, and we want to make sure that we stay Kerr united. I'm going to let the mayor wants to say a few words, and then I will take a couple questions after the mayor.
Again, thank you for being here. You know, I'm old enough to remember Fred Rogers. And he one time said, during a crisis, look for the helpers. You will always find people.
I just want to add this to whatever is in my mind right now. Okay, look. So this is devastating for sure. But a lot of people are saying that, even in the chat right now, a lot of people are saying this is man-made, or the government tampers with the weather, or weather warfare, or whatever. Okay, great. So the government creates weather disaster, according to the chat, and the government created FEMA. So you're saying that the government is the problem, and then the government creates a solution to the problem. So the government caused this weather catastrophe. the government creates a weather catastrophe, according to the chat, and then the government also creates a body to solve this weather disaster or to help with the relief from the disaster that they caused. Is that what we're saying here? Because I'm trying to understand what y'all are talking about, because I don't understand this at all. So you're saying that the government creates a catastrophe like this, and then they created a solution for it? Because what in the world are we doing right here if that's the case? What? I don't believe that, but if you guys believe it, what are we doing then?
People who are helping. In Kerrville, those helpers are the city staff, county personnel, state agencies, and federal agencies. The entire Kerrville City Council is on site today. We're doing everything we can. Let me repeat something I said yesterday. In our Emergency Operations Center, it's not a bunch of different teams. It's one team. Our goal is to rescue those in peril and find those who are lost.
I have said this multiple times. I do not believe any man can play God. Okay? God is God. And that's why when Elon Musk said the only reason Trump won was because he supported Trump, in my mind, that's playing God. And no man can play God. Now we're talking about the weather. In my mind, that's only reserved to the highest power, which is God. That's my take, okay? I believe only God can control the weather, all right? So rain, sun, day, night, whenever or whatever, I believe that that power is only reserved to God Almighty. However, people are saying that the government can manipulate all of these things. So it's like, are you saying the government is God? Because what are y'all talking about? I don't believe that. I think it's total crap. But people believe a lot of stuff, okay? People believe a lot of stuff. I do not believe that. I think God is in charge 1,000% of this floods. So, look, it is what it is.
If you are interested in donating to help those families who've been affected, you can visit the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. They've set up a portal for donations, and I understand our community, our state, and the world have been responding. Thank you. Kerrville's branch of the Salvation Army has been designated as our official partner for volunteer coordination and in-kind donations. They can be reached at a number very similar to what you just heard, 830-465-4797. Also, we have a website for volunteers to register, a different website. It's tcr.communityos.org. It's important to follow the City of Kerrville's Facebook page for updates. If you follow social media and are interested in such things, I may be too old to tell you this, but there is a hashtag. It's hashtag KerrUnited. That's what we are. We're united to help those who are grieving and to find those who are lost. And now we'll open up to questions. I cannot answer operational questions, but I'm going to ask the city manager to come back up.
I'm not sure who can answer this, but we just talked with business owners who are very concerned, not only for themselves, but also for employees, about how are they going to pay their mortgage, how are they going to pay their electricity. They've been having people reach out to them about their bills, and they're terrified that in the middle of all this, they're going to get cut off or evicted.
We are working through everything right now. Currently our biggest focus is to making sure that we get families reunited with their loved ones. And so we are not going to stop until we are.
I think like we're giving man too much power. So you're saying, man controls the weather or whatever. I believe it's God. But if you can give man that much power, because somebody said in the 60s or the 40s or whenever they said whatever they said. So that means when life is taken and a child is born, very soon in this world, we would give that power to man instead of to God. Because we are now giving man the power that we should not be giving man. Very soon, we will give birth and death to man. We will give that power to man. Because if we can give this power, this much power to man, then okay, what are we doing? Why do we even believe in God anyway? If this is what human beings can believe, that man is capable of doing this, I don't believe that.
Able to get those families reunited.
Mr. Rice, question for both you and the sheriff. There appears to be a massive operation now in Center Point. Is that where we're seeing bodies recovered at this moment?
We are seeing bodies recovered all over, up and down. So as we make our way east to west, we have the entire pretty much span of operations. We broke it down into grids so we can recover those bodies. So yes, it is a full operation.
None as of this morning.
Mr. Rice.
One more question.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that still hasn't been answered 3 days into this is despite TDEM's warning on July 2nd, July 3rd, that something like this could have happened, that the threat existed, why that information didn't get down to the camps and why they weren't evacuated. Can you answer that now?
That is a great question, but again, we want to make sure that we continue to focus. We still have 11 missing children that we want to get reunited with our families. Until we can get reunited with our families, we are not going to stop until we do. So, thank you.
One quick follow-up question, sir. Was any emergency alert given out on the 4th that morning of? Did anyone get any alert?
We have been listening to officials here in Kerr County, Texas. We just heard there from the sheriff, the mayor, and the city manager. Clearly the news that no one wanted to receive. The death toll, as was anticipated, rising here in Central Texas as a result of historic floods. We just learned there from the sheriff, Larry Latha, that 21 children have now been confirmed killed just here in Kerr County, along with 38 adults. That brings the death toll just in Kerr County alone to 59. 59 people, and across the state of Texas, that number is actually higher. It's closer to at least 67, given a number of deaths in neighboring counties. The sheriff there also revealing that a dozen plus adults that they've recovered, cadavers that they've recovered, remain unidentified, as well as some 4 children. They are hoping to get them identified to allow their loved ones to learn of what happened. We've also heard from the sheriff that here at Camp Mystic, 11 campers at this all-girls camp remain missing. They are young children, some as young as 9 to 10 years old. We also understand that 1 counselor is unaccounted for, so a dozen people from Camp Mystic still unaccounted for. Again, just a devastating update there from officials here in Kerr County. 59 people, and that death toll again is expected to rise. Notably, as they were speaking, we could hear thunder here behind us, and it has started pouring again, slower now than it was earlier this morning, but we are anticipating more rain, and that of course makes things more difficult for rescue crews. We understand that something like 400 first responders are now on the scene, along with dozens of boats, canines, and air support as well. There was a question about how people in this area were not alerted sooner that this wall of water up to 24 feet from Guadalupe River was heading in their direction. Officials there saying that they didn't want to get into the details at this point, that those were valid questions that they would look forward to answering, but they said that they didn't want to go that direction as family members are out there still trying to figure out what happened to their loved ones. Let's go back let's go ahead and go back to Jason Pack. He's a former FEMA External Affairs Officer, retired FBI supervisory agent. Jason, wondering what you made of the comments that you heard there.
Well, it's definitely tough news to hear, but from a crisis communication standpoint, they're out there trying to give you the latest that they know. We talked earlier, Boris, about those grid searches they were doing. They confirmed they were doing those in the whole swath of the Guadalupe, not just in Kerr County, but all the way down the length of where the flooding happened. So you have that piece of information. Another interesting piece of information and things that sometimes happen in these disasters is people want to call and help. And so they've gotten ahead of that. They've set up this volunteer donation coordination. It sounds like that the Salvation Army is in Texas there is the coordinating arm of that. That's going to do a couple things. You've got people calling looking for missing people into the police department there, but you also have people calling in wants to help. And so that ties up those emergency lines and delays, could delay first responder help. So good on them for getting the voluntary and the donations off to a voluntary agency able to coordinate. That allows them to focus on the task at hand, and that's finding these 11 missing children and the one counselor from Camp Mystic, and as you mentioned, in other parts of the state.
So I'm already in the chat, okay? And shout out to C. Shelley. She spoke about this yesterday because we've been talking about this Texas situation since yesterday. And now a lot of people are going to read about it because she's prompted a lot of people to go do their research about what happened in Vietnam. Now, what you guys are saying is, cloud seeding or whatever you guys are saying. So you guys are saying allegedly the government did this to its people. Is that what you guys are saying? What you guys are saying is allegedly the government did this and caused this catastrophe that ended a lot of families' lives, including children. Is that what you guys are saying? Is that what we're doing now?
Other victims who have died. As we knew yesterday, Governor Abbott listed some 18 to 20 counties, I think, in that state declaration that he submitted to FEMA through to the president for an expedited declaration. So hopefully we'll hear more about that today.
Jason, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts on this. We're continuing to track the breaking news from here in Hunt, Texas, in Kerr County, where officials have just given us an update on the number of fatalities as a result of historic flooding that hit the area some 48 hours ago. Officials updating us the death toll now at 59 in Kerr County, approximately 67 fatalities across the state of Texas, including 21 children, 11 campers that remain missing here at Camp Mystic, along with one counselor. The effort to find them is underway right now. I want to go to Jeff Zeleny, who is tracking all of this from the nation's capital for us. And Jeff, there have been a lot of questions about how the Trump administration's view of emergency response would wind up guiding what we would see here, given that the president has specifically said that he wants to do away with FEMA. And if there isn't a federally guided response to disasters like this, it's unclear exactly what a local response would look like. Right now, obviously, the priority is finding any signs of life. Nevertheless, there are a lot of questions about the resources that are going to be available to these communities to help in that process.
Boris, there are many questions, and the Trump administration is just beginning to answer those. As the local officials there were updating us on the latest death toll, the president posted on Truth Social that he has just signed that federal disaster declaration. I'll read just a part of it. He said, "I just signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, to ensure our brave first responders immediately have the resources they need." He goes on to say these families are enduring an unimaginable tragedy with many lives lost, many still missing. But Boris, you are right. The central questions here that the Trump administration is going to see in real time, the plans that he's been talking about for several months, and that is effectively eliminating the FEMA program and giving some of the funding to states to handle this locally. That is adding one more thing, if you will, onto their plate. The big bill that was passed this week that is now signed into a law is already handing some Medicaid provisions, some food assistance programs onto the states. So this is one more thing in terms of emergency disaster relief. And central questions also are facing the administration from many other disaster areas. There was a disaster a few months ago in Arkansas that initially was not granted federal funding. Then it was some questions in Missouri from some funding. So many local officials have been wondering how the Trump administration is going to respond. But in this case, the president almost immediately signing that disaster declaration, which really unlocks federal funds. So we are certainly going to see in the coming hours and days the administration respond to this. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is on the ground there in Texas. We will see if the president decides to take a trip. At this moment, he is spending his holiday weekend at his golf resort in Bedminster, New Jersey, but I'm told he's keeping an eye on these developments. But again, now with that the disaster declaration in, there are questions after the recovery and the search and rescue mission ends. Many questions for this administration. There's no question, Boris.
Yeah, certainly breaking with the last 40 years or so of emergency management, at least from a federal perspective. Jeff Zeleny, thank you so much. I want to bring in meteorologist Tyler Malden. Tyler, we were speaking this morning about the forecast and how there is rain coming to this area. We've seen it in bands coming. We also heard significant thunder strikes as well. Talk to us about where things stand right now in the forecast. Is there still a risk at this hour for these crews that are frantically trying to find any sign of life?
We still have the risk for additional showers and thunderstorms in the area, Boris. We have a flood watch in effect for the area until early afternoon. In addition, we do have those showers and thunderstorms meandering around, one of which just impacted you. We are going to see more of that to come as we begin to see breaks in the cloud cover. We see the thermometer rise and we reach our afternoon high of 90 to 92 degrees. Boom, you get those thunderstorms during the heating of the day. We are going to press a repeat for tomorrow, and it's not until probably Tuesday, Boris, that finally some drier air comes in and we can say goodbye to this rain machine.
And Tyler, there's something counterintuitive here about how all of this happened, because Texas had been going through significant drought, or at least drought conditions, before the storms that caused this arrived. How did that contribute to the flooding?
You're right, it is counterintuitive because you would think that an area that is extremely dry, is in an exceptional drought, really needs that water and would soak up the water. But actually the opposite happens when you have an area that is as dry as central Texas has been. When the soil is this arid, it essentially acts like concrete. It's not porous. It doesn't want to soak in the water. Instead, the water sits on top of that dry land as if it is concrete. So it has a hard time soaking up water. And when you do have an exceptional drought, it only takes a couple of inches to cause standing water. Therefore, when we start talking about approximately a foot of rainfall over just a few hours, that of course is going to lead to some historic flooding.
Tyler Malden, thank you so much for breaking that down for us. Jeff, as we await word on any potential rescues, as the Lieutenant Governor here in Texas put it, any potential miracles, we are waiting to find out if we'll see a visit from President Donald Trump. Obviously would be in line given the size and scale of this disaster.
There's no
Man, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in when you start to think about so many things that the chat room is saying right now is just wild. But God is the greatest. Look, the same thing happened in Georgia, Hurricane Helene, North Carolina, South Carolina, and everybody said that was the most devastating flooding that has ever happened in those areas. And now the same thing in Texas, and they're saying this is the most devastating flooding that has ever happened in Texas. People old enough, like in their 60s and 70s, are saying they've never seen anything like this. So, you know what? Now, the people that are talking about climate change and stuff like that, that would definitely be a big conversation now, especially for the Democrat in Congress. They're going to say, well, you see what we're telling you. It's like It's just a roller coaster that never ends. Like, if you think about this stuff, it just never ends. It's the same thing every damn time. But okay.
Amid major cuts to National Weather Service and NOAA and other federal agencies that monitor and track and warn folks about the weather, HHS Secretary Kristi Noem is defending the government's response to the disaster in Texas. Kristi Noem says that President Trump is, quote, currently upgrading technology at the National Weather Service. However, the president's mega bill, which he just signed into law on Friday, makes cuts and even closes some weather research labs that help make forecast improvements. A local meteorologist tells us the area is so prone to flooding here in central Texas. It's known as Flash Flood Alley. And local officials say because the area is so sparsely populated that no one was there to warn folks of what was coming downstream.
Going to be a long time before we're ever going to be able to clean it up, much less rebuild it. But there's nothing on the other side of Criders. It's just hill country. And we didn't know. We know we get rains. We know the river rises. But nobody saw this coming.
Joining us now to discuss is former FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. Administrator, thank you so much for being with us. The National Weather Service, we've learned, sent out early morning warnings about life-threatening flooding, but officials say they would have had a difficult time figuring out how serious this threat would be. Given what we know now about the forecast and the warnings that were put out, do you think there was a breakdown between forecasting and local preparedness?
Good morning, Boris. You know, I just want to first start by saying how much my heart breaks right now for all of those families in Texas and watching what's going on. We continue to see so many of these types of severe weather events just intensify at a rate that isn't expected. And I think, you know, my opinion is that we need to continue to invest in the research that's needed because the types and the strength of these storms keeps breaking records and keeps surprising people because of the impacts from the changing climate. And so, you know, whether there was a breakdown or not, I wasn't there, so I can't say. But I know that we need to continue the research so we can better understand how these storms are intensifying and what the damage potentially could be from them.
Well, do you have any awareness or understanding of what the Secretary is describing in terms of technology upgrades that are needed? Obviously, National Weather Service, a separate agency, but nevertheless, it seems like she's insinuating that this is a long-held problem. I wonder if you had ever been aware of it.
No, I personally have not. I mean, the National Weather Service has amazing forecast centers, right? We use a lot the National Hurricane Center. There's the National Water Center. There's the Storm Prediction Center. And it's a combination of technology and scientists that come together to understand these storms. And so whether or not they have technology that needs to be updated, I don't know. I mean, technology changes so rapidly that there's certainly a possibility that technology needed to be updated, but we also need to have the people that can use it and understand and look at these storms and understand how they're going to react and where they're going to provide the most impact.
Yeah, and to that point, I'd recently spoken with officials with the National Weather Service who had been warning that a lot of areas are understaffed in part because of DOGE cuts. We also have the president signing the Big Beautiful Bill Act into law, which guts a number of different programs. The president has been direct in his view that federal emergency response should be handled by the states. He has a very different perspective of what the last 4 decades or so of federal emergency response has been. I wonder what your concerns might be about having states, individual states, look after folks when things like this happen, because these incidents are of enormous scale. I wonder if you think that would be an impediment to getting folks the help that they need.
Boris, it's important to remember that states and local jurisdictions have always had the responsibility to take care of the people in their communities. I was a local emergency manager in Colorado as well as in New York. And every one of these types of events starts and ends with that local emergency manager. And then the state comes in to assist. And that's what we're seeing happen in Texas right now. And Texas is a very capable state. You know, I had to talk to Governor Abbott many times because of the severe weather that we experienced during my time as administrator. And he has a great team and they do a good job of getting out there. But we see these events continue to become so significant and exceed expectations that even a state like Texas needs some assistance, right? And so how is that assistance going to continue to be able to be offered and deployed to communities that need it timely, right? We need to get resources in there as quickly as possible to help with search and rescue, but also this massive debris removal effort that's going to have to happen in the next days, weeks, or even months after a storm like this.
Former FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, we have to leave the conversation there. We're so grateful to get your perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is on the ground, and she immediately said President Donald Trump will honor the federal disaster declaration signed by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. We've covered so many disasters over the years with different presidents. What did you take away from the secretary saying that the president will honor this request?
It's not clear exactly what that means. It hasn't cleared through the president just yet. He hasn't signed. I just checked my email. The disaster declaration hasn't come through. Often these are pro forma. They come through with ease. Often presidents approve them even before the disaster hits. But in this case, it was a surprise. It was a flash flood that came out of nowhere. And so they weren't able to, stage resources in advance. I think there are a lot of questions right now that we don't have answers to about how things are going to work this year as hurricane season is beginning, as really the summer disaster season gets underway, with the changes that the president has talked about and how he wants FEMA to work. I think there are still a lot of questions about what that means and how it will work and sort of functionally on the ground what it'll look like.
Maureen, you cover the House of Representatives, obviously. This clearly impacting Texas members as well, including one whose daughters were at this camp.
Yeah, Congressman August Pfluger spent the week here in Washington trying to pass this one big, beautiful bill, only to come home and realize his daughters were missing for a certain amount of time. He has since posted that the family's been reunited and actually thanked a number of the federal officials, including FEMA, for trying to help in this effort. And, something that I will be watching is how Congress responds, because so far we have seen a Republican-led Congress, both the House and Senate, not send disaster aid out to California after those wildfires earlier this year. Leaders actually saying that they don't trust Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom to be able to actually responsibly use that money. I don't think they will be saying the same thing if and when a disaster relief request comes in. This is obviously a Republican-led state, but they're going to be having to manage a number of things, including Trump's own budget this year, asking Congress to defund FEMA and also make sure to cut a number of other organizations. The fact that you have a congressman who has been directly affected, I think Congress might be looking at this in a different way than the Trump administration initially was looking at all of these responses.
Laura, what have we heard so far from the White House, and what are you watching for in terms of the administration's response to this?
Well, earlier when you talked about whether or not the administration would honor that word that the secretary used, honor a request, I think it's also because we have a history of President Trump in the past, sometimes politicizing after natural disasters like this, depending on which state was hit by a natural disaster. Him maybe not sending money to blue states or states that are led by Democratic governors. The fact that North Carolina also wanted more funding after their natural disaster prior to the president taking office, and them not getting it once Trump came into office. So I think that you've seen him being willing to withhold more disaster relief from states when he thinks that maybe his voters aren't in that state or they aren't impacted. And there's reporting from the first administration that it was only when he found out that certain voters of his, people who supported him, were impacted, that then he decided to release more funding. So again, yes, to your point, I think that the response to Texas may be very different, given that he is going to be facing some pressure from a number of Republicans in Congress to respond to this quickly.
There's nothing like a disaster that really shines the light on why government is needed, why these bureaucracies and infrastructure is needed. But many questions obviously will be raised about the warning systems in the National Weather Service. But here's what one official with the National Weather Service Employees Union told CNN. He said that while he believes the offices had adequate staffing and resources, the Austin San Antonio office is missing a warning meteorologist, a role that serves a crucial and direct link between forecasters and emergency managers. It says vacancies were the result of early retirement incentives offered by the Trump administration. So as we learn more about this, what do you think this says, and what questions do you have about the overall readiness of this government in the wake of DOGE and other cutbacks?
There is a balance between acts of God and what man and government can do to prevent people from being hurt by storms that come out of nowhere and massive rushes of water. I mean, some of this, you can do a lot of after action reports and you can do a lot of studying and you can find things that could be done better. But the fact is the water was still coming. And
certainly there's a lot of discussion about research and funding and how much these storms are actually intensifying.
The bill that President Trump just signed.
All right, more on the flood. These
what
are
we're seeing
probably older.
is simply staggering. Right now, rescue crews are still trying to find people who are missing, including 27 girls from a summer camp overrun by floodwaters just a short distance from where we are right now. It's actually right behind me, Camp Mystic. It's been over 48 hours since floods began ravaging this community. The Guadalupe River, which we're right next to, you may be hearing it, overflowing with multiple months of rain in just a matter of hours, reaching upwards of nearly 24 feet. The devastation, what we're seeing on the ground, is just awful. The all-girls camp here in Kerr County, Camp Mystic, hit especially hard. The desperate search for these campers now continues this morning. Governor Greg Abbott says this is a 24/7 operation and that crews will not stop searching, Jeff, until everyone is found.
And so far, authorities say more than 850 people in Kerr County have been rescued and brought to safety. The Trump administration is sending resources to help. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is now in Texas, where she has pledged federal support for those affected. Boris, walk us through what you're seeing on the ground today as the sun is rising there in Texas.
Yeah, Jeff, just on the way in this morning, the damage is fairly widespread. For several miles as we were driving in, we could see homes and businesses that were scarred, as well as an immense amount of debris, overturned vehicles, trees blocking roadways. This is an expansive site of devastation as a result of these floods. And here at Camp Mystic, again, this is right on the Guadalupe River, the river going up something like 24 feet in a matter of a few hours. And you can see in the distance the debris field, the high water mark where the trees are more than a dozen feet off the ground. There is a ton of just detritus strewn about. There are vehicles as well as what appear to be clothing, perhaps belonging to the campers here. On top of that, you have some of the actual cabins behind me where we understand that some of the camp counselors broke through windows as the floodwaters were rising to get young kids out, kids as young as 9, 10 years old here. And again, Jeff, some 27 people are still missing just from Camp Mystic.
Boris, obviously the Guadalupe River there is a base of limestone, I'm told. So that is one of the reasons that the water moved so quickly and had no place to go. As authorities continue their effort today, is this still a rescue mission or has this shifted into more of a recovery mission?
We've gotten no indication from state officials that this has now moved to a recovery mission. You heard there Governor Greg Abbott saying that this was a 24/7 operation, that this was going to continue until they had accounted for everyone who had gone missing. At this stage, it's difficult to get an exact number of how many remain unaccounted for, because not only do you have a sprawling number of campsites like this one, but you also have RV parks where we've heard witnesses say that they saw entire families washed away, but also folks who were visiting the area from out of town, folks that were here to enjoy the 4th of July on the Guadalupe River. So getting an exact number is going to be difficult, but as of right now, our understanding is that this remains a search and rescue operation, Jeff.
And Boris, we are hearing stories about the girls at Camp Mystic there in Texas's Hill Country and the victims who are still missing. What are we learning about them today from their families?
Yeah, just heart-wrenching stories, Jeff. Again, these are young women. This is an all-girls camp, some as young as 9 to 10 years old. CNN has confirmed from the parents of 4 campers that their daughters were killed. Janie Hunt is one of them. She's just 9 years old. Sarah Marsh is another. Renee Samstra is another. We also actually spoke with the family of Leela Bonner, who's 9 years old. Her family, her parents tell us that they are devastated right now, that they are dealing with unimaginable grief, but they remain praying for others, not only here at Camp Mystic, but across Central Texas, who are hoping to be found alive. Obviously, many still missing, Jeff. I understand that we actually have Jason Pack with us to talk about some of these efforts. He's a former FEMA official and retired FBI special agent. He joins us now live. Jason, thank you so much for sharing part of your morning with us. You have a lot of experience in scenarios like this, emergency situations. Can you give us an idea of what it's like to have such a wide range of different factors that are impacting search and rescue? On top of that, a forecast that is looking like a lot more rain is on the way.
Good morning, Boris. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts to this particular response, and the way responders do that to take you inside of an emergency operations center is something called the Incident Command System, and that's the way, whether you're a Fed, whether you're a local responder or a state person, that you can organize this chaos. So as a part of the Incident Command System, what's called emergency support functions exist within these command centers. Today, the operational priorities are set overnight while people were sleeping and the rescues were ongoing. People who are planning today's activities and creating operational priorities probably are concentrating on what's called Emergency Support Function 8, which is search and rescue. So those are one of the most important priorities right now, as you heard from Governor Abbott and as you're reporting earlier. Search and rescue remains paramount here in a 24/7 operation. To add to that, you want to coordinate the victim reunification, and on down the road in the priorities, you want to look at the infrastructure damage. But right now, it's all about the people who are missing and the effort and the urgent search to find them.
Yeah, can you give us a sense of what crews might be dealing with as they're out there? Because just watching on the way over here, watching what the river looked like, especially areas close to it, there's just stuff everywhere, all sorts of debris.
That's right, Boris. It's not just as simple as plugging an address into a GPS and then sending responders there. The flood has changed everything, the topography, the debris has blocked roads. So access is going to be important in figuring out to have that real-time ground intelligence about how to get there. Kinds of logistical challenges. So having the right resources in the right places is going to be paramount. We know that the Texas authorities are attacking this by ground. They're attacking this by air and by boat when necessary. So they have the resources in place. We've seen that direct federal assistance come in the form of the Coast Guard and come in the form of the Army Engineers and come in the form of Customs and Border Protection. Those federal assets are there on the ground supporting and supplementing the local responders who have just an unenviable task out there today.
Can you give us a sense, Jason, of what is actually being deployed? To your point about resources, it sounds like this is an all-hands-on-deck approach, and what those resources look like in the sense that there has to be coordination between federal and local officials.
That's right. Not only are the search and rescue equipment coming in, teams coming in to relieve them. These folks have been going looking for their neighbors for almost 72 hours now, a little bit less than that. So they're going to tire out, and so the reinforcements are coming back in from neighboring states, from federal assets. Those are the search and rescue ones. You have sheltering operations going on too. So the voluntary organizations active in disasters, we call those, they're coming in to help set up shelters. Normally you'd have services in church. The faith is being put into action today. Several churches are open to shelters there. So that's going to be an important part of the response and recovery effort. And then you also have logistics. How do you get fuel to these helicopters? How do you get food to the hungry and water? All those sorts of logistical questions are being answered by the Texas Department of Emergency Management in coordination with FEMA, who does have an office there in Denton, Texas.
Jason Pack, so great to get your expertise on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, I'll send it back to you in the nation's capital.
Good luck up there.
Boris, thank you. Now let's get straight to CNN meteorologist Tyler Malden. Tyler, walk us through where the flooding threat stands right now. What is the forecast at this hour?
Yeah, so as of right now, Jeff, we do have a flood watch in effect for this area until later this afternoon. No active warnings for the Kerrville area and the Guadalupe River specifically. We do have an active flash flood warning, though, for the city of Mason, so please take precautions there. We have radar showing rainfall in the area as well, light to moderate rainfall at the moment, but anything that we see is just going to exacerbate any issues that first responders are dealing with at the moment. This rain is going to taper off, comes right back later this afternoon, Jeff, during the heating of the day when temperatures reach the low to mid 90s, and then we hit repeat on Monday. It's not until Tuesday, Jeff, that we begin seeing the rainfall taper off and some drier air come in. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, roughly 2 to 4 inches, so nothing like what we saw on Friday. It's also important to note, Jeff, that we're no longer at flood stage with the Guadalupe River. We're below that, so this will just impact the first responders and their activities right now.
So, Tyler, we have seen those incredible time-lapse videos of the flash floods. How could this happen so quickly?
Yeah, there are a few things at play here. Number one, you have a system that was just stalled out over central Texas. It wasn't going anywhere. It was tapping on some deep tropical moisture and causing some heavy downpours to fall over the same areas for multiple hours. That's number one. Number two, we have an exceptional drought here in central Texas. So the soil is like concrete. It's not very porous. It doesn't want to absorb that rainfall. So when that rain did fall, it just sat on top of the ground because it was essentially like concrete. And we're looking at roughly approximately a foot of rainfall that fell in a matter of hours in central Texas. Some areas seeing more than that. So you take that combination and that just spells a flash flood emergency to the likes that we saw on Friday. To make matters worse, it happened during the overnight hours.
Everybody pray for Texas real fast. Real fast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marthel Neville, along with Joey Jones, Kaylee McGee-White, and Joe Concha, and welcome to the Big Weekend Show. The big story tonight is to recede in Kerr County, Texas. As the death toll rises to 68, there are still 10 campers and 1 counselor missing from Camp Mystic. President Trump just spoke about the tragedy.
Just say this is a 100-year catastrophe. And it's just so horrible to watch.
Are you planning to visit Texas, Mr. President?
Probably on Friday.
Governor Abbott spoke earlier and proclaimed today to be a national day of prayer.
We continue 24/7 operations to search for anybody who was affected by that deadly storm. We also intensify our focus on the families affected by this. They're going through horrific events that have turned their lives upside down.
Indeed, Governor, and authorities say they have rescued at least 850 people so far. The stories coming out of this tragedy are absolutely heartbreaking, but also heroic, like that of the Jeter family who saved a woman who traveled 20 miles hanging onto a tree.
I was able to look across the river into the tree, and I spotted her. So I began to call out to her and tell her that I see her. You know, I got you.
About it, you just did what you needed to do to help them get into the water to save this young lady that's clinging to life in a tree.
Joining us live from Kerr County is Fox News senior correspondent Mike Tobin with the very latest. Mike?
And Arthel, a few things that the people here in Kerrville don't want. There's thunder and rain clouds overhead, and a new flash flood warning has just gone into effect about an hour ago. The information to that is there's been a lot of rain to the north and west of here that's been collecting in the North Fork of the Guadalupe River. That formed what people are describing as a wall of water that has been pushing in this direction. Some eyewitnesses say it's already past the town of Hunt, which is about 20 miles from here. Police came to this area and started moving everyone away from the banks of the river out of really an abundance of caution. There are some workers behind me right now, which is a bit puzzling because they evacuated this area. But this flash flood watch now will remain in effect until 7:30 local time. There have, as you mentioned, been some 850 rescues. Some of them are as simple as 4x4s going into areas that were difficult to reach and piling people in vehicles and getting them out. Some of them are much more sophisticated. You've got the Coast Guard Dolphin helicopters out here who can extend a cable down and pluck people from flooded houses. That has taken place as well. Now, throughout the day, some 400 searchers have really been doing hard work. It's hot out here. There are bugs everywhere, and they are going on foot on both sides of the river, over the banks, through all of this debris. In some cases, they climb underneath the debris to see if anyone is trapped down there. They've got out the saws. They're cutting the debris away. There are also divers who are in the river itself. The river is all churned up. It's muddy. You can't see. So the way the divers are working is they feel along with their hands to see if there's anything or anyone in that river. Governor Abbott took note of the work those searchers are doing today.
This is tough work. It's hot. They're in the mud. They're removing debris. There's snakes. There's water moccasins. This is God's work that they're doing. Top priority is the family and the victims. Pray for them, but throw our first responders in there.
And in the area of Camp Mystic, first responders were evacuated just a short time ago. And Camp Mystic is the camp from which originally 27 girls mostly went missing. They now say that there are 11, including a camp counselor, who are missing. And sadly, that means the parents of 16 little girls got the notification that a positive identification was made, and their worst nightmares have come true.
Oh,
Arthel?
Oh, my gosh. And Mike, you just said the weather is not letting up. So how confident are officials, in locating the remaining missing girls? I mean, is there a time frame, again, given that the weather is just not letting up?
Well, it seems that the searchers aren't out right now, but the word we have through all the official channels is that they're not going to give up until the job is done. They have a rough idea now of 47 people who are still missing total from across the state, which is a difficult number to come up with because you have so many people who did their weekend getaways for the holiday weekend out here. And it's just hard to really determine who is missing at this point because you don't have a hard, fast number who showed up in this area.
Hey, Mike, it's Joe Concha. Walk us through the logistics of this search. How many officials are there on the ground approximately? Are they using helicopters and drones as well to make this search more complete?
Now, all of the above. You got 400 searchers on foot from 20 different agencies, and they are assisted by 20 dogs. And what they're doing is not really sophisticated. They're walking along the banks of the river. If there's a pile of debris, I watched a guy just go head first into the pile of debris, search around underneath to see if someone was trapped underneath there. They're simply picking up things and looking at it to see if they can find any victims.
Mike, we're able to get just a glimpse of the devastation behind you. If the weather gets worse, how is it going to impact the search and rescue operation? And what are the conditions on the ground like now? How are they affecting the current search and rescue?
Well, the current search and rescue is impacted by the fact that you've got another flash flood warning in effect. So you have to get everyone away from the banks of the river. The banks of the river, of course, if you've got any victims, that's where they're going to be. So it certainly complicates things and out of safety. There's a helicopter going overhead right now, so the helicopters can keep on searching. We're trying to see what materializes out of this reported wall of water that's supposed to be working its way in this direction. It could very well spread out as it works its way down the river, but you're going to be cautious at a time like this.
Mike, we're following a story of two girls that were found in a tree, miles away from Camp Mystic. Do we have is there any confirmation as to where they went missing from, or that from your reporting, it seems like they are not two of the 27?
I don't have the information on that one. We're trying to run that down, but I just don't have it yet.
All right.
All right, Mike Tobin there live in Texas. Thank you so much, Mike. And it did not take, thanks, Mike, it didn't take long for Democrats to politicize this tragedy and blame President Trump.
As the Trump administration is making deep cuts to weather forecasting services, how concerned are you in light of this?
We are going to have to figure out what happened, why did it happen, and the question of readiness is certainly something that Congress should be able to explore.
We have to look at the impact of the DOJ Trump cuts on the National Weather Service.
And the executive editor of left-wing media group Occupy Democrats went even further, blaming Trump's spending cuts for the death and destruction. But an official from the National Weather Service Employees Union is debunking that claim, saying that forecasting offices were adequately staffed ahead of the storm. And now the White House is blasting the left for making this political, calling their comments shameful and disgusting, while President Trump has already signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, giving local officials and first responders all the help they need. And, you know, guys, I'll start here with you, Joey. There's a lot of talk that's going on. I want to say, before we start our discussion here, let's make sure that we keep these parents in mind.
No,
I mean, you're a parent, you're soon to be, and Joe, I'm not sure if you're a parent or not, but you don't.
2 young children.
You are, and I'm the only one who's not a parent here, but you don't have to be a parent to have compassion and feel for these people. And because you are, you understand full well what they're going through in a way. And so let's make sure that we're mindful of that while we cover this story and keep our prayers going for these families who are suffering, and for the first responders who are working so diligently to find hopefully some people who are still with us. And that said, Joey, just, you know, look, there's this blame game that happens all the time when things like this happen. First of all, you can't tame Mother Nature, but maybe perhaps, is this a time to focus on infrastructure to make sure that, you know, perhaps there's cell phone coverage everywhere in the country, so that, even though I understand that the Mystic Camp, they don't allow cell phones, but, you know, maybe the counselors are there. I'm not sure what their rules are, but I don't know. My point is, what's a way to get some positive reaction from this?
The first reaction is the point you made. Keep the parents in mind. This is about them. This is about the loss, the sadness, the tragedy. I agree 100%, which makes that montage we played really puzzling to me. I'll keep the mean words out of it. I'm not going to call names. I'm just going to say it is puzzling to me that your reaction in this type of tragedy and natural disaster is to find a political and partisan angle. I don't understand that. To go back to what happened, it's way too early to know. I covered this story extensively last night and this morning, and from what I understand, this water rose, the majority of the 29.5 feet in Hunt, Texas, happened in 45 minutes. There was one, I believe, 18 a.m. Flash flood, 5 to 7 inches was at 1 p.m. the day before. Hey, 5 to 7 inches flash flood warning. I live on a river. If you tell me there's 5 to 7 inches, I'm not worried about it. It wasn't until 1 a.m. that there was a warning that said this is an emergency, and I don't know that it said evacuate. It just said it's gotten worse. And by 4:45 a.m., it was 29 feet higher. I don't know that there is an infrastructure that fixes that.
Yeah, Kaylee, what do you have to say about this?
Well, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick joined us yesterday, and we asked him if there were concrete steps that the Texas government could have taken to make sure that those alerts had gotten out sooner. And he made it very clear that Texas would be investigating to the fullest extent to make sure that any loopholes are closed. So we can be confident that both the federal and state government will do what needs to be done to address this in future situations. But I agree, when you're talking about 26 feet of water in 45 minutes, there is simply no way to prepare for that. It is a tragedy, and those politicizing it ought to be ashamed of themselves.
And Joe, again, we cannot tame Mother Nature at all. But one of my takeaways from the press conference that Governor Abbott held with the officials there, of course, they're very sober, but they also seem very measured in terms of, okay, this unfortunate tragedy happened. We are going to see if there's what we can do to prevent something in the future. Of course, it doesn't help, again, those grieving parents now, but they seem to just go right into action.
Yeah, what we'd like to see at least is the antiquated National Weather Service warnings actually be updated. That would be a good first start. But to both Joey's point and Kelly's point, there were flood warnings 12 hours before this happened. There were flash flood warnings 3 hours before it happened. We keep seeing on other networks talking about how there wasn't the proper staffing at the National Weather Service in that area. They actually had twice as many staffers on as they normally would. So again, if you're going to try to find blame and in the name of accountability, well, at least get your facts right. And at this point, like we see so often, especially in a world of social media, there's a lot of information out there that is not accurate. But 12 hours, 3 hours as far as flash flood warnings, twice as many staffers, those are the facts. And if this still happened, well, unfortunately, then we have to find a better way to get warnings out to camps where they don't have cell phones, for example.
Yes, yes. And again, let's come together. This is a horrible tragedy.
Indeed.
And listen,
Yes, straight up, this is a horrible situation. A lot of people have been killed by the catastrophic flooding in Texas. So, I mean, man, let's just come together. I mean, instead of fighting over caps lock in a chat, come on, man. Y'all acting like, come on, people are dying. Y'all fighting over caps lock. Jesus.
But first, we turn to the devastation in Kerrville, Texas, where rescue efforts are ongoing as crews hope to reunite families after deadly floods. Joining us is House Budget Chair and Texas Congressman Jody Arrington. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. There was and is a devastating tragedy unfolding in Texas. All of us are thinking about those impacted. I mean, the thought of children just attending a Christian camp and others losing their lives is heartbreaking. And candidly, Chairman, it's a test of faith. I'll let you respond. You represent that great state. It is heartbreaking to those of us who are just watching it.
No doubt. Trey, good to be with you. My heart's heavy, as many of my fellow Texans feel the grief and the heartache for these families who are still waiting to see if they can find their children from these camps. And of course, the death toll now is 70 and rising. We have a little ranch, my family, just a few miles up the road from Camp Mystic. And that area is prone to flooding, but we have never seen this wall of water that rose 30 plus feet in less than an hour. And so it is an epic and unthinkable tragedy. And I think there'll be a lot of postmortem analysis. But right now, especially on this Sunday, as many of my fellow Texans and fellow Americans have gone to church to worship and pray, we are lifting them up to the God of compassion and Father of all comfort in their day of trouble, and just praying that God's supernatural peace and comfort will be with them, because there are no words right now for what's happening in the hill country in the heart of Texas.
And if I know Texans, they will not stop looking until they have reunited everyone they can possibly reunite with their loved ones. Texas is unique in that regard. Our hearts and prayers go out to you, Chairman. I love that state. I spent 4 years in it. I have a lot of friends in that area. Our hearts are broken. As for the bill, what should GOP members in swing districts, in your judgment, highlight about the bill the president just signed?
Well, it is big and beautiful in this regard. It's the largest tax and spending cuts. It's the largest welfare reform. You talked about, restoring the dignity of work, not trapping people in a cycle of dependence and poverty. It's the most significant commitment to opening up our nation's energy assets. So it's a return to energy dominance and bringing down the cost of energy for working people. It's a long list of really good things. The beautiful part about it is the help that's on the way for our working families. And on the tax side, it's supercharging what we experienced after the 2017 tax cuts, right? We had the most investment, capital investment, R&D investment, repatriation of dollars that gave us unprecedented growth. But we also had the lowest poverty rates in recorded history, the lowest unemployment among females, Hispanic, and Black Americans. And so supercharging that through giving business provisions permanence and certainty, but also giving working people additional enhanced tax breaks. That's the tax on tips, the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, the tax breaks for seniors who are on a fixed income, families who have children with the enhanced child tax credit. So I think most Americans, Trey, have a pretty clear contrast between Republican policies and their quality of lives versus what they experienced over the last 4 years of not just lawlessness and chaos, but the cost of living crisis, the likes of we haven't seen in 40 years. We had virtually no interest rate cost. We had virtually no inflation. People had more money in their pockets. We had thousands of dollars in increase in median income, the largest wage increase in 25 years. What I'm telling you is we're going to see this and more, and the proof's in the pudding. And I think as Americans experience that, they're going to be better off, as will our country, and so will our prospects in the midterms.
All right, Chairman, before I let you go, Elon Musk has started a third party. Only in America can a South African start a party called America. But he may have enough wives and girlfriends and children to actually form a congressional district.
So now Elon Musk is South African. That's just crazy. He's an American. He was born in South Africa as well. He's a Canadian. So I don't know what these people are saying when it comes to disagreeing with Elon Musk. As a matter of fact, I don't agree with Elon Musk on a lot of things. I think he is a genius, but I always say he is an unstable genius. However, when Elon was supporting Donald Trump, who I voted for, the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States, who is doing a terrific job, is doing a wonderful job as far as I'm concerned, everybody was saying, Elon Musk was a good guy. Now he's a South African. Yeah, that's crazy. And I actually support him starting a third party. Yes, I support him starting a third party because at the end of the day, it's like, if he fails, it fails. Yes, if his party, the American Party or whatever is naming it, if it fails, it fails. What do you have to lose? If it fails, it fails. However, he should be allowed to do it, not focus on Elon Musk is starting a third party. Is that what we should be focused on? Elon Musk is starting a third party. Real life situation is going on in the world, in Texas. This guy on the right is talking about midterms election. Everything is about the midterms election in 2028. Who gives a damn about the election in 2028? Like, look, sometimes you just got to say it, okay? It's not just about the midterms and the elections in 2028. It's about every day, every single day. I get it. You got to still worry about the elections and keeping your seat or whatever. But let the man do what he's doing. He wants to start a political party. Let him do it. He has the right to do it. He is an American. Stop saying he's a South African, because when he was supporting Donald Trump, nobody was saying he's a South African. Everybody took his money and nobody said he's a South African. Now he's a South African. Right? He's a South African. You may not support what I'm saying, but it's the facts. When he was campaigning with the GOAT, Donald Trump, in my opinion, which I still support, I will support Donald Trump because I think he's doing a great job. I voted for Donald Trump. Nobody said anything about Elon Musk being a South African. Now he's a South African because he doesn't like the big, beautiful bill. He's a South African now that he's starting a new political party. I think he should be allowed to do what he wants to do. If he fails, if the American Party, whatever, Congress fails, then it fails. Let him fail in peace, because I think it's going to fail. But going after him and saying all of these things that you're saying about him, it's just going to make people support him. Focus on what's going on to Americans, for example, in Texas. Focus on that and stop getting worried about Elon Musk.
Well, what is his complaint other than losing electric car giveaways? Why is he so critical of this bill?
Well, I think there may be some personal feelings wrapped up in his analysis, but I will give him credit that we have to change the trajectory we're on from the perspective of the unsustainable deficits and debt. As the budget chairman, Trey, I can tell you, we cannot sustain the $2 trillion annual deficits that will double in 10 and the record World War levels of debt that will just continue to grow at exponential rates. The 30 years is $150 trillion on top of the current $36 trillion. So we have to intervene in a meaningful way. Quite frankly, much of the big work to be done will have to be done in a bipartisan basis. But we cut $1.5 trillion, which is twice the amount of reduction in spending in the history of the country. You couple that with growth. You couple that with the holding discretionary flat and rescission packages and some tariff revenue, regardless of your thoughts. CBO says it'll be over $2 trillion in revenue from tariffs. Altogether, you're going to see the debt to GDP come down and the restoration of our fiscal health. But it's not one reconciliation bill and we're out. It's going to have to be a rinse and repeat for years to come.
Chairman, thank you for joining us on a Sunday night. And do me a favor, please let everyone impacted in Texas know that the entire country is thinking of them, especially the families impacted. And we appreciate you taking time to join us on a Sunday night.
Will do, Chairman. Thank you. God bless.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Let the man do what he wants to do. Let him be the third American party or whatever he's trying to do. Let him do it. Just let him do it. When he, like I said, he has contract with
Speaker of the House,
NASA, and he's the biggest. He's the one
Mike
helping
Johnson,
NASA
good to have you
build
back. I know that state.
whatever they're doing in space. So NASA doesn't have a problem with that. They use his expertise to do great things in space. He has Tesla cars in America, made in America, helping the American economy. Nobody has a problem with that. Now he's about to start a third party, and some Americans are supporting it. Now he is a South African. Yes, he was born in South Africa. However, he's a naturalized citizen. He is an American. So, look, this is what we're not going to agree on, okay? Because he was campaigning with the legend, Donald Trump, and everybody was jumping and saying, even the richest man support Trump. Everybody was jumping and saying, yeah, let's go, Elon. Now he's a South African. While everybody was praying for South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Elon Musk was deploying Starlink to North Carolinians. Okay? Elon Musk was helping California with the wildfire. He gave Starlink to California. He's done so many great things, okay? Is he perfect? No, he has multiple kids with multiple women. Yes, I don't think that's a conservative, but I don't need anybody perfect because nobody's perfect. Donald Trump is not perfect, okay? He's far from perfect. Matter of fact, he's way farther away from perfect than so many people. But I voted for Trump because I believe he was the right man for the job. And I still think he's the right man for the job. So I think Republicans need to start understanding that sometimes you just got to let something slide. Let it go. Let the man do what he wants to do. Okay. And I saw the Truth Social post from the commander in chief talking about Elon Musk and how far he's gone to the left or how far he's derailed. And he's even starting a third party. I don't think the president needed to say all of that stuff, especially with what's going on in Texas. You know, this is the president of the United States. I don't expect the president to be, going after Elon Musk. Like, let him do what he wants to do. There's so many ways to get back at Elon Musk rather than, doing all of those stuff. That's my opinion. I don't think Trump should be even saying one word about Elon Musk. He's way too important than that. And by important, I mean the president of the United States is way too important than talking about Elon Musk. You have too many things to do. You have trade deals, you have hurricanes, you have flooding, you have foreign policies, you have the American economy, you have the border, you have wages problem. People are complaining that the wages is way too small. Some states have $7.50 as minimum wage. People are complaining about that. That should be the things that, the commander in chief should be focused on. He should not be focused on Elon Musk. I don't think, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Hell no, I don't like that. And I still think that he's doing a great job. But on this issue with Elon Musk is wasting time. Just talking about Elon Musk. That's just total waste of time. Okay, that's a total waste of time. Let Elon be Elon. He's an unstable guy. Let him be that person. Okay, let him be.
Federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we'll handle supplemental funding requests as they come in. But right now, they're still trying to do rescue and recovery, and our hearts go out to all of them.
Well, as that continues and as you may get emergency requests and supplemental, as you said, here in Washington, you're coming off a major legislative achievement here, which even until the last moment seemed like it might not come together. You had critics within the GOP. We'll talk about them, but clearly Democrats are not fans. You just heard Congressman Khanna, which I know you're friendly with him, describe what's going to happen in this bill. Here's what DNC Chair Ken Martin said. Donald Trump and the Republican Party sent a message to America. If you are not a billionaire, we don't give a damn about you. 17 million Americans will lose health care, over 5 million will lose food assistance, and millions will lose their jobs. Voters that we talked to in our latest poll very much think that this is going to hurt their family. Put the numbers up there. The largest group says.
Exactly. So Curry B just mentioned like two other parties, and Magpie also mentioned like what? 4 other parties. So that's why I said, let Elon do what he wants to do. He's probably going to fail with the American Party. Or he might just change his mind and say, you know what, I'm not doing it anymore. He said he was going to do so many things that he didn't do. He said he was going to fight Mark Zuckerberg, UFC fight. And Mark Zuckerberg said, yeah, let's do it. But he knew, I don't want to do that. He said so many things that he was going to do, and he never did it. So on Independence Day, July 4th, he said he was going to register the American Party. Let him do it. He's probably going to fail, except you think he's not going to fail. That's why you're trying to stop him. And when you try to stop stuff like that, that's when it actually doesn't fail. Okay, so if everybody just goes silent and let him do it, it's probably going to fail. But now, if they keep on attacking Elon Musk with this American Party or whatever it's called, a lot of people will start noticing. And then come the next election, you're going to F around and find out.
Not going to be good for them. You heard what Congressman Khanna said. It's going to make health insurance higher. People are going to lose the assistance they need. And so even if there are tax breaks built in for these different groups, the net offset is a negative.
I love my friend Ro Khanna, but he and the DNC chair there are sharing old, tired talking points. This is what they say every time there's Republican legislation having anything to do with taxes. They are overlooking the actual facts. All that is nonsense. Shannon, what we did in this bill is we made permanent the 2017 Trump's tax cuts, and that was geared for lower and middle class Americans, in spite of everything they said. The bottom 20% of earners saw their lowest federal tax rate in 40 years. Now we're building upon that. We just made that permanent, and we're building upon it because now we've cut tax on overtime and tips and had more tax relief for seniors. And we're giving everybody a tax cut, and that's going to help the economy. It's going to be jet fuel. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, risk takers, the people that provide the jobs, manufacturers, farmers get assistance here, and that will lift the economy. The Council of Joint Economic Advisors is expecting a 3% growth rate in the economy. That will be incredible. They're expecting 4 million additional jobs to be added. The average American, the typical American household, will have $13,000 more in take-home pay. This is a great thing for people who go to work every day. And they're going to feel that. And we're excited about the upcoming election cycle in 26 because people will be riding an economic high just as we did after the first 2 years of the first Trump administration. But this time it's on steroids.
We'll get to the political implications of that, but you talked about these being permanent and across the board. So I want to play something from Democrat out of Maryland, Congressman Glenn Ivey. Here's what he said.
It's given with one hand and taking away a lot more with the other hand. And, you know, some of the tax cuts that they put in place for working class people are time sensitive. They expire in a couple of years, whereas the one for the wealthiest Americans are permanent.
So what about that point that some of these are not going to be permanent for working class people?
No, I don't think he read the bill. It's 940 pages, so I would give some grace on that.
Well, if he was listening on the Senate last Sunday, they were reading it.
Yeah, you're right, for 19 hours or whatever it took. Here's the thing. If you make between $30,000 and $80,000 a year, you're going to have a 15% less federal tax rate. You're going to save more money. You're going to keep more of your hard-earned money, and that's not going away. So by making all these tax cuts permanent, it's the largest tax bill, the most important, most consequential tax bill that Congress has ever passed because of what it does for people who go out and work hard every day. We're going to make it easier on them, and all the other pro-growth policies in this bill. We also, at the same time, achieved the largest savings for the taxpayers in U.S. history, about $1.6 trillion in savings. So all those things are going to have a great effect. By the way, in the bill, we're also going to secure the border permanently. We're going to return to American energy dominance again, which is going to also be jet fuel to the economy. We're going to take care of peace through strength because we're going to give important investments in our military industrial complex, which will help us in our competition with China. There is so much in this bill. It would be difficult for us to cover it in one segment, but people are going to feel that, and we're super excited about what we were able to deliver.
Okay, so the vote to get the bill actually to the floor broke a record. For hours, that vote stayed open. You had a number of GOP holdouts who said there was no way they were going to vote for this. They were very worried about spending and Medicaid cuts and all kinds of other things. And yet they came around. So the question becomes, what deals were made? There are a couple of members who've said they were given assurances outside of this bill of other things that they would get down the line.
I don't make deals, never have since I became Speaker, which is why I'm still surviving with the gavel, right? You have to find out where people's red lines are and navigate through that with what we've had as the smallest margin in U.S. history at most points along the way. But we got it done. No side deals. What the extra time was, we needed that for people to process it. Remember, we got the Senate bill on a Tuesday. They modified a lot of what we did in the House. We worked on for over a year. So we needed a couple of days there for everybody to process what all those changes were and ensure that they knew exactly how that was going to be implemented by the administration. So the president, the vice president, cabinet secretaries were engaged in these discussions, answering questions. It was a full team effort, and that's how we got it over the line.
Okay, so Congressman Keith Self said that there had been promises for other offsets outside the bill itself. You talked about Congressman Chip Roy. He said their reconciliation bill. You've said there's going to be more of that. Yeah. He said, referring to promises that Johnson and others said that they would pursue outside of this bill.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about that publicly and privately for a year and a half. We have always planned to do the first big reconciliation bill, which is the big, beautiful bill. Now it's done a huge leap forward for our priorities. But then also we've been planning a second reconciliation bill for the fall that would be attached to the next fiscal year, and then potentially one in the spring. That's my plan. 3 reconciliations bills before this Congress is over. I think we can do that. And so you'll see more of us advancing these common sense principles to deliver that America First agenda for the people. That's what they elected us to do. And this was a huge leap forward.
So Democrats say they are excited to run on this bill.
Yeah, right.
A DCCC memo obtained by Axios says Republicans are going to lose the majority in 2026 because of this. They call it the GOP tax scam. They say the more that people know about it, the less that they like it. They're also talking about Democrats holding rallies outside of rural hospitals and nursing homes this summer to tell people that they are going to lose their care.
As I said on the House floor the other day, it takes a lot longer.
Yo, shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. He says, hey, Genesis Trump Weems. He's been winning for a long time, and they've been trying to attack him. I get it. But now a lot is going on. Dr. Luke, have you seen what's going on in Texas? A lot is going on. But of course, Trump has given the emergency relief fund, I think, about 70%. So that's good news. But a lot is going on, the GOAT, Dr. Luke. God bless you. Here we go.
To build a lie than to tell the simple truth. Our Republicans are going to be out across the country telling the simple truth, and guess what? It will be demonstrated. Everyone will have more take-home pay. They'll have more jobs and opportunity. The economy will be doing better, and we'll be able to point to that as the obvious result of what we did. So don't buy into those false talking points.
All right, you've got some polls to overcome. We'll see if the messaging battle is won as you did on the Hill. Speaker, always good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Shout out to Mike Johnson. A lot of people doubted Mike Johnson when it came to making sure the bill was passed. But you know what? Sometimes you just need patience. Okay, you just need patience. Sometimes you need patience. Okay, so they don't want to let Joe Biden rest. Here we go on Joe Biden.
I don't think Biden knew what was happening. I think that the Europen is one of the biggest scandals in the history of this country, because the person that operated the Europen was the president of the United States. And I think that that's going to be sought out, and we're going to find out what happened.
President Trump last weekend on Sunday Morning Futures discussing former President Biden's mental fitness while in office. The House Oversight Committee is now expanding its investigation into Biden's alleged mental decline. It is sent to interview 5 members of the Biden administration, including former Chief of Staff Ron Klain, former counselor to the president Steve Ricchetti, former senior advisor to the president Mike Donilon, former Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Bruce Reed, and former senior advisor to the president for communications Anita Dunn. The committee will also get a deposition from Biden's former physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, this week. Joining me now with more on all of this is my second favorite House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer. Chairman, thanks so much for joining us here on Sunday Morning Futures. I say that because I used to be the chairman, so you're definitely ahead of Trey Gowdy. I can promise you that. Tell us, though, seriously, where are you at with this investigation? Tell us where you're at with this investigation and who's up next.
Dr. O'Connor is scheduled to come in Wednesday for a deposition. We asked him to come in, and he agreed to come in a few weeks ago. Then he declined the night before. So I issued him a subpoena. We're serious about this investigation. You heard from President Trump on this show last week. This is something that he's very interested in. Pam Bondi has announced an investigation at the Department of Justice into the illegal use of the auto pen. So we're very interested. Dr. O'Connor's going to come in. We have a lot of questions about the health reports that he would issue to the American people about Joe Biden that I don't think anyone in America, including the most liberal person on MSNBC or the biggest Democrat in America, believes that Joe Biden was anywhere near as healthy as Dr. O'Connor would continuously publish. So we've been consulting with Ronnie Jackson, who's a member of Congress and who was President Trump's doctor during his first term in the White House. We have a lot of medical questions. We have a lot of legal questions for Dr. O'Connor. So he's going to have an opportunity Wednesday to come and tell the truth and explain how he continuously issued glowing reports of health from Joe Biden.
Tell us a little bit about Anthony Bernal. He's the former chief of staff to Jill Biden, the first lady. He was supposed to come in and chat with the committee as well.
Yeah, and that's another issue that we've had. He did not come in. What's happened, Jason, is President Trump waived executive privilege. And what we think was going to happen when they all initially agreed to come in voluntarily was that they were going to plead executive privilege and not answer our questions. They don't have that. President Trump's waived it. They're going to have to answer our questions. And if they don't answer our questions, or if they don't show up for these transcribed interviews and depositions, then we will hold them in contempt of Congress. Our whole conference is united behind getting the truth to this. We want to know who was authorizing the use of the auto pen. We've brought in a witness already that's identified the inner circle. The witness that was actually putting in, that was Neritan, and that was putting in the documents into the auto pen. But she was never around Joe Biden. He never said, here's the documents, put it in. We're identifying that inner circle. Dr. Conner is obviously a big part of the equation, because we believe, just as Jake Tapper has written, what we believe Jean-Pierre is going to write in her book, that there was a massive cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline, and there was a select inner circle. And we believe Bernal, who was Joe Biden's chief of staff, was a major part of that inner circle. So we're going to give everybody their due process. They're going to be able to come in and explain. But the purpose of this investigation is the fact that there were many executive orders and many pardons that were signed with an auto pen. And as you have discovered, Jason, many of these were signed on days when Joe Biden was supposedly in the White House. Why couldn't he have signed it, his name right there? Why did they have to use?
Everybody should be looked into, because, Donald Trump was checked front to back, side to side, and everybody said, yes, he should be checked. He was going from courtrooms to courtrooms during his campaign, and he still won the election. So, yes, I support whatever these people are getting. They should be checked, okay? If you're good, then you're good, no issues. But you should be checked, just like Donald Trump was checked. And shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. God bless you for the super chat. He says, Genesis, Texas is very lucky Trump is in office and not Kamala. I'm praying for Texas, and I know Trump will make every effort to get Texan 8. Of course, I think he already did it. Dr. Luke, I think he already did it. He gave them a relief fund. Think about 70%. It's going to cover 70% of whatever you lost. I think so, because he posted it on Truth Social and on Instagram. So, and the governor spoke about it. And of course, DHS Secretary, Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, spoke about it yesterday as well. But he's approved relief funding for them, and that was really remarkable of him. I was really glad when I saw it. And of course, Corey B says, shout out to Corey B, man, with his caps, okay? Corey B ain't backing down. He's not backing down, y'all. Corey B says, I'm no doctor, but I prescribe everyone watch Genesis once a day for good health. Shout out to you, Corey B. God bless you. God bless y'all, man. Here we go.
Use an auto pen, and why was it such a secretive process? So there are major legal implications of this investigation, and hopefully we'll be able to get the truth to the American people, and hopefully do it in a very rapid manner.
Yeah, if I have the number right, my recollection is something like 75% of the auto pen signatures happened while President Biden was at the White House. Why would you need an auto pen if you're residing in the White House? And that's a stunning...
Exactly.
Chairman,
that question should be addressed to Jake Tapper, because Jake Tapper said he was good to go. President Biden was good to go. So that question, why did Biden need auto pen, should be addressed to Jake Tapper of CNN.
You're doing an amazing job getting after this. In the case of Anthony Bernal, didn't show up. Then he got issued a subpoena. Now he has to show up. So congratulations, sir. It's going to be that much more difficult. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, thank you so much for
Yes, everybody needs to show up and say your own part of the story. They said Joe Biden was ready to go. So if Donald Trump didn't call him out to do the debate last year summer, we probably would not have seen a debate, because just like in 2020, most people didn't know, but that guy was hiding in the basement. But for some reason, they buckled him up and made sure he did the debate in 2020. But 2024, he was just a tired man. He was tired. He was ready to pack it up. So they gave us Kamala Harris. And during the Israel and Iran situation, that's when I was so thankful Trump won anyway, because I voted for him and I prayed that he won. But just imagine Kamala Harris was the commander-in-chief during the Iran and Israel situation. Oh my goodness. We would be washing our collard greens in the bathtub right now. Everybody would be washing their collard greens in the bathtub. Remember, she said she used to wash her collard greens in the bathtub? Kamala Harris, ladies and gentlemen.
How many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years, my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol.
A startling assessment of just how open our borders were during the Biden administration, especially now as the Trump administration ramps up its monitoring of Iran-backed sleeper cells. More than 400 terrorism-related encounters occurred at our borders during the Biden administration. That includes hundreds of foreigners on the U.S. terrorist watch list encountered while trying to enter the country illegally under the Biden administration, and millions of others seen on surveillance cameras getting away. Joining us is the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. Look, here on the homeland, concerned about these sleeper cells, and you have Iran, who's been pummeled. I mean, their nuclear sites have been dismantled. But from the perspective of NATO, how do we assess what's happening in Iran right now, what their attitude and approach is, and how it relates to these sleeper cells that I think a lot of national security experts are quite concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very dangerous world, Jason, and I think, President Trump as a peacemaker has made it safer. But at the same time, we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden, including a porous border where not only did we have, as Tom Homan points out, over 1,200 Iranian nationals that came into our country that we know of, but you had over 1 million known gotaways that we have no idea who they are, where they went. And that's a real challenge. But at the same time, President Trump has been very clear about his policy towards Iran, that they cannot have a nuclear weapon. And they're at a decision point. They should move forward and seek peace. The Israelis have completely decimated their proxy groups, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, and at the same, we've helped them as a country with both our work in the Red Sea against the Houthis and with the complete obliteration that we did with the bunker busters on their nuclear program. And so, Iran should come to the table and should sue for peace and should make a peace deal with the United States, with Israel, and just say no more. We want to be in the world where people seek prosperity and a bright future for their citizens. So, Jason, I think right now this puts a lot of pressure on our law enforcement, puts a lot of pressure on DOJ and the FBI to be right 100% of the time and seek out these sleeper cells and to make sure that they can't activate.
Well, you were the former acting attorney general. You have that interesting perspective. But my understanding is, Ambassador, that the supreme leader there in Iran, for the first time, we've actually seen him on camera since the devastating attack on the nuclear sites What should we glean from that, and what in the short term and long term, what are we worried about here?
Yeah, well, it's coming from a place of weakness. The Supreme, Ayatollah.
Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Yes, you are definitely late. We've been streaming for almost 3 hours now. Yes, you are late. But, of course, you are the GOAT. So, welcome to the show. Okay? Welcome to the show.
Needs to show his face, needs to demonstrate that he's still in charge. But at the same time, he's been militarily completely decimated. His nuclear program has been obliterated, and he's in a position of weakness right now, and he's just trying to hold together his power because, the 90+ million Iranian citizens want a better life. They don't want this war and conflict that he has fomented. It was kind of this policy of no war and no peace, where they had these proxy groups, and Israel put an end to a lot of that, took out their air defenses. And this is an interesting thing that's going on right now worldwide, is that air defenses are at a premium, they're low availability, and the United States, having just passed this one big beautiful bill, demonstrates through the this acceleration of the Golden Dome air defense and missile defense program that ultimately we get it, and we're going to continue to be the world's preeminent superpower, and we will protect ourselves and our citizens.
And let me shift gears here, Ambassador. Give us the latest update. Ukraine, Russia's been bombarding the Ukrainians with drones. What's the latest there? What is the posture of the United States, and what involvement, if any, are we going to take in this war?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, President Trump, the ultimate peacemaker, has made the world safer through the peace deals between Rwanda and the Congo, India, Pakistan, Israel, and Iran, with the end of the 12-day war. But at the same time, this Ukraine-Russia situation, President Trump wants a peace. He wants a ceasefire. But Vladimir Putin, who he talked to a couple days ago, doesn't seem to want to come to the table and actually negotiate. It appears that Zelensky does. I was in the room last week in The Hague where President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky sat down and talked about this. But at the same time, it's one thing to attack militaries, and we have thousands of people every week dying on the battlefield. But, Vladimir Putin is now attacking major cities like Odessa and Kyiv. And I think that is a crossing the line. And I think President Trump has told Vladimir Putin that attacking citizens is just not something that you can do legitimately. And so, President Trump wants peace. He wants to bring this to an end. But at the same time, in order to have peace, both sides have to come to the table and be willing to compromise, be willing to negotiate, and be willing to end the killing, because ultimately that's what needs to happen.
U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Thank you guys for tuning into the live show. Yes. Are you guys enjoying the show? Scott Bessent, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's bring in Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Welcome to Fox News Sunday, Mr. Secretary. Good to have you.
Shannon, good to see you.
Okay, so let's start with the bill. You wrote a piece over at foxnews.com, an op-ed, and you say one of the main issues is ending illegal immigration as a key part of this. It's about redirecting an estimated $249 billion in annual wages paid to people here in the U.S. illegally, to those who are here legally, or to American citizens. You say this: ending the black market of undocumented labor by funding enforcement of our existing immigration laws will result in a massive pay raise for the working class. So that begs the question then, if that's the case, if there are higher wages, businesses are going to have to pass that on somewhere else. Does that end up then with the American consumer?
Well, I don't think it has to. And look, what we saw was this mass unfettered immigration across the border, whether it's 12 or 22 million people who came in, suppressed working people's wages. And for 20 years, the big lie was that this kind of immigration didn't hurt working people. Now, economists have come out and said, oh, what a surprise. Even the laws of supply and demand work in the low-end labor market. So I talk about in that editorial what I call parallel prosperity, that for years Wall Street has done well, Now it's time for Main Street to do well, and they can both do well. And that's the one big, beautiful bill. That's the beauty of this. It helps Wall Street and Main Street.
So let's talk about those jobs, because there are skeptics who say, the American workers and those who say who are sort of their wages depressed, that they're not going to step up and take some of these jobs. Here's a bit of analysis from libertarian-leaning Cato Institute. They say the U.S. labor market remains tight, and there are simply not millions and millions of idle American workers sitting on the sidelines just itching to take these newly opened jobs. To the extent Trump's broad deportation promises come to fruition, we can expect many immigrant-dependent industries to suffer and few American workers to gain. So is it overly optimistic to think there are Americans who will flood to these jobs?
I don't think that it's overly optimistic to believe that at a price, Americans will do these jobs. But, again, with these depressed wages, we've seen a lot of people drop out of the workforce, especially men aged 16 to 35 are in an era of despondency, and they have dropped out of the workforce. They are having health issues, they're having mental health issues, and I think that they will come back in. And look, this is part of President Trump's agenda. We're doing peace deals, trade deals, and tax deals, and the trade deals and the tax deals are going to bring back working class jobs with good wages, with good health care.
So let's talk about tariffs, because obviously we're hitting this deadline. We think this week the president's talked about sending out letters to a number of our top trading partners about, listen, if you can't get a deal, this is the drop dead deadline. We are going to drop a new set of tariffs come August 1st. So is it fair to say there's a bit of a pause on the July 9th deadline for some of these trading partners? Who do you think is getting these letters first?
Well, Shannon, I don't think it's a bit of a pause, because I think what's happened is there's a lot of congestion going into the home stretch. And as part of the trade team, what's great about having President Trump on side is he's created maximum leverage. So by telling our trading partners that they could boomerang back to the April 2nd date, I think it's really going to move things along the next couple of days and weeks.
Okay, so let's talk about some analyses on these tariffs. From the AP, they say this: a JP Morgan Chase Institute analysis finds a critical group of U.S. employers would face a direct cost of $82.3 billion from President Donald Trump's current tariff plans. They go on to say the investment bank Goldman Sachs said in a report expects companies to pass 60% of their tariff costs onto consumers. Our most recent poll shows that 57% of Americans do think the tariffs are going to hurt the U.S.
Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Yes, he's not called the GOAT for nothing, okay? He is the GOAT. Shout out to Dr. Luke. He says, get those likes up, beautiful people. Genesis has great mods, a great attitude, and a great political instinct. We are lucky to be here. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. And I'm lucky to have you guys here too. Shout out to Dr. Luke. God bless you for the super chat. Truly appreciate it. God bless you. Yes, here we go.
Economy. So some of the experts, everyday Americans, they have real concerns about how this is going to cost them. What's your message to them?
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, has turned into tariff derangement syndrome. As soon as you call them the Trump tariffs, 90% of Democrats hate them.
And that's another thing. When TDS affects you, TDS, like Jet would say, TDS makes you un-American. It makes you anti-American. That's what Jet always says. That's what Jet always says. He says TDS makes you anti-American, because what are you doing? Like, TDS made people say, well, why would Trump tell Iran not to have a nuclear weapon? What are you talking about? Same thing with the tariffs. People said, well, according to CNN, they said top scholars in Oxford or Stanford or whoever they get this analysis from. They said tariff is going to drain the economy, tank the economy. All of a sudden, the stock market is at an all-time high. It's like, you guys aren't tired of being wrong about everything this guy does. Just let him be the president. You're going to get your chance in 2028. Just let him do his job. And in 2028, you get your chance to vote for whoever you want to vote for.
And I'm going to have to disagree with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. The empirical data shows that we have seen no inflation thus far, and we'll see over the coming months. And Shannon, there's a big difference in inflation and a one-time price adjustment also. Inflation is a generalized monetary phenomenon. We're not going to see that. And thus far, we haven't even seen the one-time price adjustments. What we are seeing, the business model for many of our trading partners, especially in Southeast Asia, is to produce, and the manufacturers in those countries are taking the price increases into, or the tariffs into their margins.
So let's talk about some of the specifics, because the EU, you've talked about that's notoriously difficult because you've got 27 different entities that are feeding into this conversation. They've got a lot of leverage, frankly. They have talked about the fact that they're ready for retaliatory tariffs if this new level kicks in. I know there were talks through the weekend. Where are we with them?
It's moving along. We'll see where we go. They came to the table late. President Trump brought them to the table about 3 weeks ago with the threat of 50% tariffs. That got an immediate reaction from about 5 of the national leaders, and he had a call with Ursula von der Leyen right after. So we're getting much more fulsome negotiations. But Shannon, I would disagree with you. The leverage here is with the United States. We are the deficit country, the surplus country. The EU has a gigantic trading surplus with us. We have the leverage because their economy is much more export dependent than the U.S. In general, the U.S. is a very large closed service economy that our imports are quite low. We're a big economy, which makes the deficit numbers big.
Let's talk about Japan. The president said this week, tough to make a deal with them. He said they're very spoiled. How's that going?
Japan, again, they are great allies. I think that there may be a nuance here that they have upper house elections on July 20th, and a lot of the things that they're talking about require legislation. So we may have to see what happens with those elections.
Okay, I want to ask you, too, about the Fed chair. The president has said this week, among other things, called Jerome Powell a moron. They are not besties at this point, it appears. There's speculation now that he may go ahead and announce a replacement for him way early, since his term is not up until next May. Wall Street Journal reporting this. An early announcement could allow the chair in waiting to influence investor expectations about the likely path for rates, like a backseat driver attempting to steer monetary policy before Powell's term ends. You have demurred on whether you would be the guy for that job, but what do you think is the impact of all of this public back and forth with the Fed chair?
Well, Shannon, I'm a basketball fan, and in basketball, there are 2 schools of working the refs. There's the Bobby Knight School and the Dean Smith School. Obviously, President Trump's more in the Bobby Knight School, and I will tell you, Bobby Knight won 3 national championships. Dean Smith only won 2, so working the refs seems to be effective.
So there may be some chair throwing.
Sorry?
That's what you're saying. There might be some chair throwing if we're going with the Bobby Knight school of how this is done.
Think about this. There are good candidates already on the Fed board who for Fed chair, and they make their opinions known at every meeting. So I don't find that disruptive at all.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for the time.
Good to see you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe.
All right. Joe Biden, he's saying that heads of states around the world are calling him for advice.
We didn't ask for it. In fact, no one did. But Joe Biden is back. The former president spoke at a human resource management convention this week and appears to be suffering under the delusion that he's still the president.
President Biden said he's keeping busy in his retirement by still negotiating with world leaders.
How can you just walk away? I'm not, you don't see me out there publicly doing a lot of this. If they ask to see me, and I see them.
Maybe world leaders are suffering from insomnia and need a chat with Biden to fall asleep. Even here at home, Biden says he's chatting with Democrats and Republicans, perhaps to ask what actually happened during his time in office, because he's, quote, working like hell to write a whopping 500-page memoir by March, which is sure to debut near the bottom of the bestsellers list. But maybe Biden's memoir will finally reveal who was really running the White House during his term. One former DNC staffer believes Jill Biden was the puppet master. Well, we may get answers soon as congressional probes are heating up. Former Biden officials are set to testify in the coming weeks, including Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, on Wednesday. Joey, I have an extremely difficult time believing that foreign leaders are calling up Joe Biden to ask for his advice on anything, let alone the goings-on in the world.
Yeah, I don't see it. I could see them saying we'd prefer Biden to be in office. I mean, Trump says himself, I don't blame them, but they were getting a better deal from the Democrats than they're going to get from me. So, I mean, there's that angle. I think as a former president and a man who's aging, potentially not in good health, he's got to save the Biden name and relevancy because that's what they have to make money on, and that's what every president does. So go out, give speeches, and unfortunately, as a politician, you get to tell the story the way you want to tell it, not necessarily how it happened.
And Joe, the idea that foreign leaders are calling Joe Biden for advice when members of his own party don't want anything to do with him. Take a look at what Kamala Harris posted this past Independence Day weekend. Okay. Notably, in the original shot, Joe and Jill Biden were right next to them. This is the cropped image, intentionally left out.
Wow, there's some symbolism there because that's exactly what happened with Joe Biden in July of 2024, 1 year ago, where we had a party that was talking about saving democracy. So what did they do? Their own party actually ousted a sitting president to install another candidate without one vote from any Democrats or the general public in general. So they talk about saving democracy, yet they're doing the Soviet-style installation. I saw in that package that we just played that Joe Biden is still negotiating with world leaders. What exactly is he negotiating? And is that proper for a former president to be doing, to be going behind the back of the sitting president now at this point? Either way, there needs to be accountability around this. If an auto pen, and we don't even know who was running the auto pen, was signing all these executive orders and running the country, we didn't know who was running the country because, again, that's not democracy. That is a shadow government, and we need answers and accountability. But I have a feeling the American people are going to be disappointed because nothing ever happens in these situations in the end. There's never any accountability.
Absolutely. And Arthel, perhaps one of the reasons why Democrats are sort of keeping Joe Biden at arm's length is because they also want to distance themselves from the mental acuity cover-up scandal. Listen to Representative James Comer discuss how Congress is going to hold those Democrats accountable.
I think was going to happen when they all initially agreed to come in voluntarily was that they were going to plead executive privilege and not answer our questions. They don't have that. President Trump's waived it. They're going to have to answer our questions, and we will hold them in contempt of Congress.
A couple of names that stood out to me on the list of former Biden officials that Republicans plan to bring in: former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who recently announced her exit from the Democratic Party, and also Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's White House physician, who insisted repeatedly in public medical reports that Biden was all fine and well. What do you make of that?
Listen, President Trump won the 2024 election. President Biden is now the former president. So let's move forward. Why is Congress wasting money on doing these investigations on what Trump won? Let's move on. President Trump is running the country, how he sees best for Americans. So why are we wasting time on all of this? And by the way, as far as that crop photo is concerned, the former vice president was making a comment about her husband. She and her husband sharing the holiday together. And so that's why she cropped them out. And quite frankly, if we had a 4-shot right now, I'm cutting all y'all fools out. It's going to be me.
Well, I do think the investigation matters because it's important. Americans deserve to know who was representing them for 4 years. If it wasn't Joe Biden, then who was it? Wasn't an unelected cabal of White House staffers?
You guys, you know that Joe Biden was not suffering the entire time. I'm just saying, we're just wasting a lot of time.
Even if it was 1 year, though, Arthel, that's still a year.
I don't know, and I'm not here speaking for Joe Biden. What I'm saying is that it's time to move on. President Trump won. There's so many things that our country needs to be focused on for the betterment of.
So when it's Joe Biden, you say, let's move on. But when it's Donald Trump, we're going to have to investigate. We have to investigate him. But as soon as it's not Trump and it's somebody else, let's move on. Trump won the election. Let's move on. You see how they do? You see how these people do? All right. Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. God bless you for the super chat. Dr. Luke, the GOAT. It says, if anyone deserved to be called former president, it's Joe Biden. They did Trump so dirty for constantly calling him former president. For real, for real. I'm just happy we have Trump at the helm right now doing his thing. And all we could do is actually pray for our leader right now and hope, he keeps making the right decision, because as far as I can tell, he's been making the right decision, from trade to tariff to ceasefire deals between Iran, Israel, bringing back the economy, closing the border, the big beautiful bill where low-income families can now send their kids to school that is not in their zip code. That is a win for low-income family. Anybody who says that is not a win, how is that not a win for low-income families? Because in the ghetto where you stay, in a project, the schools are not good. But now you have the opportunity to take your kid to another school that is in another zip code for them to learn and actually network with other kids. So, come on, y'all. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. Low taxes for every American. It's not just for the rich. And think about it. If the rich get low taxes, they employ most of Americans. That means you're going to get high wages. But if you increase taxes on the rich, what do you think is going to happen to your paycheck? Increase taxes on the rich. It's just common sense, y'all.
Of Americans. So
we should just let it go?
No, I'm not saying let it go. I'm saying not spend so much time on relitigating what is in the past. And as far as whatever, really quickly, whatever as far as his
it's in the past, ladies and gentlemen.
President Trump has come in and undone and redone, again, for the betterment of the people as he sees fit. So he has the power now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Now it's the past. It's not supposed to be investigated. All right, the legend right here.
Thank you very much. We've been in touch with Governor Abbott and very close to Governor Abbott and everybody in Texas. Kristi Noem has, as you know, been there and will continue to be there. And we're working very close with representatives from Texas, and it's a horrible thing that took place. Absolutely horrible. So we say God bless all of the people that have gone through so much, and God bless the state of Texas. It's an incredible place. Any questions, Ms.?
President, are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
For the trade letters that you're sending out on Monday, Secretary Bessent said that it would be a 3-week extension and that rates could go back up to the April 2nd level on August 1st. Is that what we should be
sending letters out on Monday having to do with the trade deals? It could be 12, maybe 15. You know, Secretary of Commerce right here. And I guess, Howard, I would say it could be maybe as many as 15 or so. And they'll be going out on Monday, and some will go out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we've made deals also. So we're going to have a combination of letters, and some deals have been made.
Your reaction to Elon Musk starting a third party?
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
What's your feedback?
Now, I like that response when he says he can have fun with it. That's what I want to hear. Let him have fun with it. It's most likely going to fail, but nobody should be trying to stop him from doing a third party. If he wants to do it, let him do it and let him fail in peace. Okay? Let the man fail in peace. Let Elon fail in peace. I mean, godly.
Golden key back from Elon.
Go ahead.
What's your message going to be to Netanyahu tomorrow?
Well, we're working on a lot of things with Israel, and one of the things is probably a permanent deal with Iran. In other words, they have to give up all of the things that you know so well. The attack turned out, according to every single atomic energy commission, that was a complete and total obliteration. And we had the pilots, as you know, at the White House on Friday. They were incredible. And they confirmed that. They know better than anybody, by the way, but they confirmed that every bomb hit its mark perfectly. And they would have to start all over again at a different location. This one was, the word I used was the correct word, obliteration.
What will your message be on Gaza to Netanyahu?
I think we're close to a deal on Gaza. We could have it this week.
Democrats are claiming more federal cuts for the debts over in Texas.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. We've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out. We think we'll have that done this week.
Mr. President, do the tariff rates change at all on July 9th, or do they change on August 1st?
What are you talking about?
Tariff rates, do they change on July 9th or August 1st?
No, they're going to be tariffs. The tariffs are going to be the tariffs. I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th, yeah. Either a letter or a deal.
But they go into effect on August 1st. The tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates and the deals right now.
Okay?
Are you investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the national?
I mean, we can say what we want to say about Trump. Whatever you want to say about Trump, I get it. He's not perfect. But there's no saying that he's not the most hardworking president that we've seen. I mean, look how he's moving. He's always talking to the press. Now he has this guy beside him saying what he's doing. So every time he's working, even when he's on vacation, he's working. He allows the press travel with him everywhere he goes. Almost every other day, we get something from this guy. He's always talking on what he's doing. He's negotiating deals. He tells us what he's negotiating on. He's not just coming on TV and say, it's been done. No, he's always taking the American people with him. And that's why I voted for him. That's why I voted for him. Everybody's like, yo, you're a sellout. I get it. Okay, I can take it. I'm a big boy. But if you actually look at this guy, he's the right guy for the job. He's the right person for the job. Is he perfect? No. Just like nobody is perfect. Okay. I don't expect Trump to be perfect. Okay. I'm not voting for him to be the holy father of the American people. I'm not voting for a pope. Okay. I'm voting for the president of the United States. So I don't need him to be perfect.
National Weather Service or the emergency coordination?
No,
They did not.
They didn't. I'll tell you, if you look at that what a situation that all is, and that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch.
Are you planning to visit Texas, Mr. President?
Probably on Friday. We wanted to leave a little time. I would have done it today, but we'd just be in their way. Probably Friday.
Mr. President, have you been briefed on the ship that was hit in the Red Sea? Do you know if the Houthis attacked that ship today?
We'll give you a report sometime tonight or tomorrow.
The D.C. City
Council has not approved a new stadium for the Commanders. If they don't approve it, will you step in?
Well, we see what happens. I've been looking at the deal, and I don't blame them. They have to. It's a very important piece of property. It's a great piece of property. So we'll see. But if I can help them out, I will. Ultimately we control that. The federal government ultimately controls it. So we'll see what happens. I saw the plans. I saw the stadium. The owner's very, very successful and a very good man. I know him a little bit. And it would be a great place for the NFL to be there, I can tell you that. So if they want to negotiate a little tough, that's okay with me.
Would you see the Commanders change the name back to Redskins?
Well, you want me to make a controversial statement? I would. I wouldn't have changed the name. But that's there. It just doesn't have the same... It doesn't have the same ring to me. But, winning can make everything sound good. So if they win, all of a sudden the Commander sounds good. But I wouldn't have changed the name. Say it.
Why not help Ukraine the same way you helped Israel?
I am helping Ukraine. I'm helping it a lot. And it's a war that should have never happened. It's a war that should have never started. If I were president, if the election weren't rigged, and it was rigged so badly, and that's come out. Read Miranda Devine in the New York Post today.
Oh, man.
The election was totally rigged. And if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have a war with Russia right now. And you wouldn't have had inflation. And you wouldn't have had the horrible Afghanistan the way they left. Not that they left. We would have been out before them. But the way they left, I think the most embarrassing day in the history of our country.
And even Vladimir Putin said if Trump was president, this war would have never happened. Because according to Vladimir Putin, he allegedly said he spoke with Joe Biden and he told him, let's have a conversation because I don't want to have to do things that may, be bad for Ukraine. And according to Vladimir Putin, he said he never heard anything from Joe Biden. So that's what he said. Okay, so, Trump is right.
You wouldn't have had the October horror show with Israel and Hamas. You wouldn't have had any of it. You wouldn't have had the recent showdown with Iran. You wouldn't have had any of it. And you wouldn't have had inflation.
So you said you had a strategic call with Zelensky the other day. What strategy did you
I thought it was a good call. He's being hit very hard, as I said he would. He's being hit very hard, and I was very disappointed with my call with President Putin. I was very disappointed.
Mr. President, in light of the floods, do you think that the federal government needs to hire back any of the meteorologists who were fired in the last few months?
I wouldn't know that. I really wouldn't. I would think not. This was the thing that happened in seconds. Nobody expected it. Nobody saw it. Very talented people are there, and they didn't see it. It's, I guess they said, once in 100 years, they've never seen anything like this. So I wouldn't, people are trying to blame the school. They're trying to blame the camp. They're trying to blame. It's just a horrible thing. But no, I wouldn't say that, no.
Secretary Lutnick, are you expecting any deals to be signed this week, and what countries are closest to that?
Well, the president is right in the midst of discussing all sorts of deals with all sorts of countries, and the gentleman to my right is going to decide, and I'm going to be with him when he makes that decision.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Well, Dana, first, let's have a look at the Yale budget.
That was Secretary Lutnick, very successful person as well. Trump just always hires people who have done successfully in their personal life, which I support because if you've never done anything by yourself, you have no track record. How are we supposed to know that you can handle pressure? How are we supposed to know you can get things done and fast? So I support that. All right, here we go.
President Trump's big, beautiful bill is now law. And as he hits the road to sell Americans on that new law, the president is also facing another deadline this week. More than 100 countries have only 3 more days to meet the deadline he set to make tariff deals. Here with me now to talk about all of that is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it. Let's start with the new law and who it helps. The Tax Policy Center says the majority of the tax benefits will go to Americans making $217,000 or more a year. The Yale Budget Lab says the richest Americans will see their income rise by nearly 2%. The lowest earning Americans will see their income drop by 3% when factoring in cuts to Medicaid and food stamps. You argue that the benefits will really be aimed at the middle class. How does that square?
Dana, first, let's have a look at the Yale Budget Lab, because I was looking at their findings, and this week I actually went on their website. They're all ex-Biden officials, so I think we can discount everything they say. I'd encourage all your viewers to look at the composition of both the board and the staff. And it's just not right that what we have here is a middle class and working class bill, that we are going to see wages accelerate, and we are going to see, just as we saw with President Trump's first tax bill, we are making permanent these tax cuts. And what happened in 2017, 2018 was the highest wage earners went from paying 37% of all taxes to 45%. So that's going to be permanent now. So permanently, the highest 10% will pay a higher percent of the taxes.
I should say that, taking the Yale Budget Lab aside, there are Republican senators who are worried about affordability and who this all is going to affect.
Look, that's the thing about CNN. They just come up with the Yale professionals are saying. What professionals are saying? Give us their names. Let's go read it ourselves. Well, they're saying the business experts in Yale are saying what? What are they saying? And now she's about to say, well, let's take it away from him. What are you supposed to say?
I think affordability, safety, and growth are the three things this bill is going to generate.
One of the tax cuts that are in here are for, and the president talks about them a lot, are on tips and overtime. Mm-hmm. Those are temporary. Why not make those permanent? They're only 2025 to 2028.
This is a big part of President Trump's agenda. So, we have what I call parallel prosperity here, that Wall Street has done great. Now it's time for working Americans to do great. And this is President Trump's agenda, so we've got it in for the duration of his term. And we will see if the next administration wants to do that.
And just talking about the affordability, how is making cuts on Medicaid programs, how does that, and how it affects the people who are at the lowest ranking when it comes to income, how does that help with the affordability crisis in America?
Well, first of all, that affordability and saving Medicaid, let's separate those. And only in DC is a 20% hike over 10 years a cut. So Medicaid funding will go up 20% over the next 10 years. The people who Medicaid were designed for, the pregnant women, the disabled, and families with children under 14 will be refocused. The able-bodied Americans are not vulnerable Americans. So a work requirement or a community service requirement, that's very popular with the public, and many state programs have that now.
It might be popular, but it's not what the president promised. The president promised that there would not be changes to Medicaid benefits, and putting a work requirement is, by definition, a change to benefits.
No, there are no change in benefits. There's a change in requirements to get the benefits. And what we are doing, we are bringing back manufacturing jobs. We are bringing back working class jobs. By securing the border, we have already seen working class wages move up. So we are creating jobs. People can get off Medicaid and get a job that has good health care benefits, Dana.
In theory, that works, but I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of the concern, including and especially from Republicans who are the most vocal in Congress, about the fact that those work requirements are going to be very cumbersome to actually prove, and it will inevitably force the people who need that Medicaid coverage off the rolls?
Well, first of all, the Republicans are not the most vocal on this. It is a group of Democrats who unfortunately seem to think that poor people are stupid. I don't think poor people are stupid. I think they have agency, and I think to have them register twice a year for these benefits, that is not a burden. But these people who want to infantilize the poor and those who need these Medicaid benefits are alarmist.
Yeah, but my impression of the Republican Party is that historically you've wanted to cut through the red tape and not create more red tape. But I do want to move on because
no. But we've also wanted to put in work requirements, which somehow that was very popular under Bill Clinton, was popular under President Obama, and this Democratic Party blew out the deficit in 2020, and they never want to bring it back. But work requirements even poll well with the median Democratic voter, maybe not the fringe.
let's talk about tariffs. President Trump gave countries a 90-day pause on the sweeping tariffs he put in place back in April. That pause ends in 3 days. What happens on Wednesday?
We'll see. I'm not going to give away the playbook because we're going to be very busy over the next 72 hours. President Trump's going to be sending letters to some of our trading partners saying that if you don't move things along, then on August 1st, you will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level. So I think we're going to see a lot of deals very quickly. And Dana, we're going to send out probably 100 letters to small countries where we don't have very much trade. And most of those are already at the baseline 10%.
Well, you said August 1st. Do you mean what's going to happen in August?
So the countries will get a letter saying that if we have not reached an agreement, then you will go back to the April 2nd level.
Starting when? On August 1st?
On August 1st.
Okay, so there's basically a new deadline.
It's not a new deadline. We are saying this is when it's happening. If you want to speed things up, have at it. If you want to go back to the old rate, that's your choice.
When you say that there's going to be a lot happening over the next few days and you don't want to give me the playbook, is there a playbook?
Sure. The playbook is to apply maximum pressure. We saw that the EU was very slow in coming to the table. 3 weeks ago on a Friday morning, President Trump threatened 50% tariffs, and within a few hours, 5 of the European national leaders had called him, and Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU, was on the phone, and the EU is making very good progress. They were off to a slow start.
Shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. He says, man, I got to give a shout out to Dr. Luke one more time, man. The GOAT, Dr. Luke, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. You are truly appreciated. Dr. Luke, the GOAT, says, Jet, we appreciate you, brother. Yes, Jet said that some of his family members are calling him, Naxes and shit. So it's like, what is that? This is why I always say that it does not matter if you're Democrat, Republican, independent, conservative, progressive, liberal. You have to remember that you are American first. You are. So why would you be calling your family member a Nazi for supporting Trump, for voting for Trump? What are you doing? You forgot that you are American? And he's your family member. This is your family member. Golly, y'all be taking this way too seriously. Like you take this way too seriously. Come on, man. We got to do better. We have to do better. You are American first before you are a Republican. You are American first before you are a Democrat. You are a Republican first before you are a liberal, whatever you are. Okay? Independent, whatever you are American first. And you should certainly not be calling your family member that.
The president said some countries could end up with tariffs as high as 70%. Which countries is he talking about?
I think you'd go back and look at the April 2nd levels. But again, none of those are major trading partners. There are 18 important trading relationships that account for 95% of our deficit. And those are the ones we're concentrating on.
Are you close to any deals before Wednesday? I know you're talking now about August 1st, but where are you on
we are close to several deals. As always, there's a lot of foot dragging on the other side, and so I would expect to see several big announcements over the next couple of days.
Can you name names?
I'm not going to name names because I don't want to let them off the hook.
Okay. When you talk about these letters and you talk about kind of
He's way too smart for
90 deals in 90 days, or at least the president did back in April. So far, we've seen 3, and they're not concrete deals the way that we're used to seeing trade deals. They're frameworks. Mm-hmm. The president has a reputation, self-described deal maker. So why haven't we seen the kind of deals that he promised in the last 90 days?
Again, he didn't promise this, and when we send out the 100 letters to these countries, that will set their tariff rate. So we're going to have 100 done in the next few days. And
but that's not a deal, that's a threat.
No, that's the level. That's the deal. If you want to trade with the United States, this is.
But that's not a negotiation. That's just a
many of these countries never even contacted us. So that's the thing about being the deficit country, Dana, is when you are the deficit country, you have the leverage. These are surplus countries that they have exported more to us than we export to them. So we have the leverage in this situation.
You know, when I talk to small business owners, both doing interviews with them and just in and around in my life interacting with them, I have not met one who has not said it's the uncertainty with the tariffs that is making it so hard for them to do business because they're kind of frozen in place. What do you say to those business owners?
Well, I'd say 2 things. The other thing they would probably have been telling you is it was the uncertainty around taxes. So with the One Big Beautiful Bill, they now have great certainty on taxes.
No, they've said tariffs.
No, but let me finish. When I'm out talking to businesses, they want trade and taxes. So we have certainty.
She's just trying to get her gotcha moment. It's not working. It's not working.
On taxes now, all businesses know that they'll be getting 100% expensing for new plant and equipment. On tariffs, again.
I mean, can you imagine as a small business owner, you started your small LLC or whatever, side gig that you registered as a business, you can now get 100% tax write-off on your equipment. Man, you got to give Trump his flowers, man. I got to hear that again.
Trade and taxes. So we have certainty on taxes now. All businesses know that they'll be getting 100% expensing for new plant and equipment. On tariffs, again, it is the 18 important trading relationships.
It is what it is. You just got to give these people their flowers. They've done right by small businesses, big businesses, individuals, whatever you do in the United States, as long as you are on American soil, you will get low taxes. All right, shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. He says, Jet, remember, the hyenas turn to face the lion when he corners them, and there is no escape. That's deep. That's definitely deep, Dr. Luke, the GOAT. So, Jet, we got you, bro. We love you, bro. Okay. Yeah. Like I always say, this is this small community that we have built here. So, you know what? We love you, bro. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I can say. And one day they're going to come back to the realization that, you know what? Maybe we were taking it a little bit too far. We're sorry, Jet. We are sorry, Jet. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have seen this or heard about it. Dr. Oz and DOJ reveals 300 plus charged and 96 medical professionals that have been doing some really shady things when it comes to healthcare. Check this out.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Gagliotti, and I'm the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. In a takedown this large, I can't possibly describe all of the work that went into dismantling each scheme, but there are 4 key points that bear emphasizing. First, let me be clear about what these healthcare fraud schemes mean for every hardworking American family. These criminals didn't just steal someone else's money. They stole from you. Every fraudulent claim, every fake billing, every kickback scheme represents money taken directly from the pockets of American taxpayers who fund these essential programs through their hard work and sacrifice. And when criminals defraud these programs, they're not just committing theft. They're driving up our national deficit and threatening the long-term viability of healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and our most vulnerable citizens. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. Second, we are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents intercepted and arrested key members of that organization at U.S. airports and the U.S.-Mexico border, cutting off their intended escape routes. The days of transnational criminal organizations using the American healthcare programs as their personal piggy bank are over. Third, this takedown resulted in criminal charges against 74 defendants, including medical professionals who fueled America's deadly opioid crisis for personal profit. These are not isolated instances of poor judgment. These are calculated schemes designed to exploit Americans struggling with addiction while enriching the very people who were duty-bound to help them heal. We charged pill mill operators who prescribed unnecessary opioids. We dismantled networks of corrupt pharmacies that existed solely to distribute drugs to addicts and dealers, feeding the addiction crisis that has devastated so many American communities. This is not healthcare. It is a staggering breach of trust. And under my leadership, the criminal division will prosecute these criminals as aggressively as we would any drug dealer, because that's exactly what they are. Fourth, many of the defendants charged as part of this takedown specifically targeted our most vulnerable citizens. elderly Americans in nursing homes, individuals with disabilities, those battling serious illnesses, and more. For example, our prosecutors charged 7 defendants, including 5 medical professionals, in connection with approximately $1 billion in fraudulent claims to Medicare and other healthcare benefit programs for performing medically unnecessary skin grafts on dying patients as they were seeking to spend their final days with dignity and peace. That conduct is exactly as callous and disturbing as it sounds. Patients and their families trusted these providers with their lives. Instead of receiving care, they became victims of elaborate criminal schemes. Today's takedown marks a historic day. In addition to the tireless work of our Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, this extraordinary effort would not have been possible without the law enforcement agencies with me here today. Health and Human Services, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Drug Enforcement Administration. And of course, countless partners across the federal, state, and local law enforcement community and dozens of United States attorneys' offices. Thank you to all who made today possible. Now, despite these historic achievements, we aren't resting on our laurels. We're making advancements to stay ahead of their criminals and their illicit schemes. That is why today I'm also announcing that we are working with our partners at FBI, HHS OIG, and other federal agencies to create a healthcare data fusion center to revolutionize how we detect, investigate, and prosecute healthcare fraud. These efforts will be led by the Criminal Division, specifically the Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, and comprised of data specialists from the unit's data analytics team. The Fusion Center will break down information silos using coordinated data analysis to enable our investigative teams to quickly identify and dismantle emerging fraud schemes, preventing money from going out the door. Today's enforcement action represents the largest healthcare fraud takedown in American history. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new era of aggressive prosecution and data-driven prevention. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Acting Inspector General Juliet T. Hodgkins, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General.
Good morning, and thank you to Mr. Gagliotti and to the Department of Justice for inviting me to join here today. Combating fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare, Medicaid, and other HHS programs is our mission at the Office of Inspector General. I am proud to be here today representing the tremendous work of our criminal investigations team in this takedown. This unprecedented healthcare fraud takedown is more than twice as large as any past one, having stopped national and global fraud schemes alleged to have resulted in over $14 billion in intended losses. The results announced today were only possible, though, through a strong partnership of federal and state agencies. By working shoulder to shoulder, we harness the best information, tools, and expertise to find criminals, no matter where they hide, and no matter how they try to disguise their crimes. I would especially like to thank DOJ, CMS, FBI, DEA, and our other federal partners that are here today. I would also like to acknowledge the state Medicaid fraud control units, as well as the strong public-private partnership between government and private insurers to combat health fraud. Simply put, criminals go where the money is. Through information sharing, government and the private sector help each other to more efficiently stop fraud. And under our watch, criminals will not be allowed to enrich themselves with dollars meant to improve the health of Americans. One massive fraud scheme that was charged as a part of today's takedown involved multiple durable medical equipment companies that billed Medicare over $10 billion for equipment that patients did not need or that they never received. The good news for the American people is that the alleged criminals in this scheme never got their hands on most of that Medicare and Medicaid money that they tried to steal. Instead, the government coordinated to use our collective tools and authorities to protect taxpayer dollars. This takedown also demonstrates, though, our commitment to shield Americans from harm. The actions taken by our partnership stopped individuals and entities that were alleged to have used stolen medical identities from over 1 million patients to submit false claims. They preyed on patients who needed addiction services, billing for treatment that was never received. They illegally diverted prescription opioids, millions of pills that continue to fuel the devastating opioid epidemic. But as fraud schemes span borders and jurisdictions, OIG and our partners respond quickly and effectively. And as fraud schemes increasingly exploit technology, we use cutting-edge investigative methods to detect fraud, prevent losses, and protect patients. Before I close today, I must take a moment to applaud the exceptional work of the dedicated OIG professionals that participated in this takedown. Every day, these outstanding law enforcement professionals do the dangerous work of holding criminals accountable. Thank you for your service to the American people. Thank you so much, and I will turn the microphone over now to Dr. Mehmet Oz, the CMS Administrator.
Let me put on my clinician's hat first, because it is my culture, my story. I'm a heart surgeon. And when I hear about this fraud, I think about patients who have trusted us, people who are at their most vulnerable time looking for the protection of our services. And too often these criminal entities have tried to pierce that trust. When you walk into the Health and Human Services building not far from here, there's a quote from Hubert Humphrey, from whom the building is named, and it says, "It is the moral obligation of government," that's what we're doing here today, it's the moral obligation of government to protect those who are at the dawn of their life, our children, those at the twilight of their life, our seniors, and those living in the shadows, folks who are having trouble, like the substance use disorder mentioned a second ago by Juliet. I want to applaud all the agencies that collaborated today, because when President Trump signed the executive order on fraud, waste, and abuse, a pledge to crush this reality, this is exactly what he had in mind. At Health and Human Services, under leadership of Secretary Kennedy, we have strived to break down barriers and silos in every way possible. What you're witnessing on stage today is exactly that. The American government at its best, making sure all of us work together for the same common purpose, in this case, especially, expressly to protect those who are our most vulnerable. Because all great societies are judged by how they take care of those who are vulnerable, and we are great people. We will do that. So to the OIG, the DOJ, who's hosting us, the FBI, DEA, and other agencies that were engaged. And let me ask Kim standing in the back. Kim Brandt runs, Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Administrator at CMS. She runs the fraud unit. And I'll speak about some of the work she and her team have been doing in my comments today. It is, and you'll hear this said by all of us, and we should, the largest Department of Justice health care fraud takedown in history. The fact that it's even possible that you could have $15 billion to play in this endeavor is shameful. But that's how we're being attacked now, and it's not done by small-time operators. As you're hearing about and you will read about, these are organized syndicates who are designing to hurt America. And why do they hurt our healthcare system? Well, CMS is probably the largest target of all, responsible for about $1.7 trillion of disbursements. So it's a big target on our side. And they can pierce the veil of protection by just getting identifier numbers from our seniors or Medicaid recipients or others, and thus use those tools, use you, the American people, to hurt us. What we're doing today is changing the paradigm. Not just going after bad guys and putting them behind bars, but actually getting ahead of these schemes so the money never leaves our bank account. Because by the time we find out that these criminals have stolen and the money has left the building, it's already offshore somewhere in some foreign country's vaults where foreign leaders are rejoicing in the fact they took advantage of the American people. That's why we use the word crushing fraud, waste, and abuse. Because this is not just a nice thing to do in an accounting pickup that we can, claw back money. It doesn't happen that easily. And this is a modern era. There are modern tools being used to attack us, and we need even more modern ways, including AI, which I'll speak about in a second, to take them down. The oversight has to be unrelenting. We can never let our guard down. While we're sitting in here right now, there's hundreds of thousands, probably millions of efforts being made to hack into CMS and our system, and we have systems designed to prevent that, to make sure the people who need us the most will find that we're there to protect them. The CMS Fraud War Room that I want to announce that Kim is going to lead is an effort as an example of this. It's prevented most of the fraudulent efforts to take money out of our agency. So most of the money never left the door. So most of the money was never stolen, even though we know you were trying to do it. And when I speak to you, when the president signed that executive order, he put a bunch of sheriffs, new sheriffs in town. And that's what you're looking at on stage today and many others like us who are not going to tolerate this anymore. We're stopping stolen taxpayer money from leaving the door, stopping it in its tracks. Just when I was leaving the room today, the offices today, I was hearing about over $100 million that we've stopped from leaving the agency just in the past few weeks. There are 27 providers that are under active prepayment review, which means we're not going to pay their money until we verify that they're actually doing their jobs correctly. There's examples from telemed schemes in Florida with clinics billing for activities that they're not really, we don't believe, providing. There's a cardiology provider, and please help me understand this, who's providing cardiology services in person in Georgia and Nevada at the same time on the same day. Unless teleporting is being made feasible, not possible, but it happens. The audacity to think you could get away with this highlights the fact that folks believe they could have taken advantage of the agency in the past. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. There are mental health clinics, listen carefully, mental health clinics providing skin substitute placement on their patients. Again, you're dealing with ulcers in a mental health clinic. These services are provided by an anesthesiologist. Improbable. Money's not leaving the building. You're going to have to prove to me that there's a clinical benefit of a psychiatrist telling an anesthesiologist to put a surgical graft on a patient. It's not going to happen. We need your help. That's my big plea. We need your help, the American people. Why? Over half of the whistleblower tips that we get are for healthcare fraud, and over half of the fraud against our government is in healthcare. So we need your help, both to protect your own important information. Don't give it away because con artists come to your door and try to get it, but give us tips. You're going to hear all of us share opportunities that we have, but it only happens in healthcare because we know we have allies, the American people. We provide care to 68 million Medicare beneficiaries. 80 million Americans are on Medicaid or CHIP. There's another 20 million on the exchanges. There are a lot of people that will come to help us. So write this down, 1-800-HHS-TIPS. 1-800-HHS-TIPS. We have a URL, obviously, if you go to our website as well. And I'll leave you with one last thought. In addition to the massive fraud, especially from foreign entities trying to invade America using their financial tools and criminal mindsets, we also have 25% of all of our money being spent probably subject to abuse. And that's not fraud. This is abuse and waste. Money not being used wisely. We just launched a new model called WISER with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation under Abe Sutton that is looking at ways for us to identify inappropriate use of services that are wasteful and should not be offered to the American people because they could hurt them. And they're certainly not providing value for these wonderful Americans whose health is being taken advantage of to generate higher savings, higher revenue, rather, for providers. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. We're going to use data analytics, real-time monitoring, and unhesitating and unwavering pursuit of the law to make sure this happens. I want to thank my colleagues on the stage and their agencies for all the wonderful work you have done. God bless you.
We're honored here at the Bitcoin.com studio to have the Treasury Secretary of the United States. And
all right, there you have it. Scott Bessent.
Good afternoon and welcome to the
Scott Bessent. On CNN, and then we saw Dr. Oz on the situation going on with people just taking the law for granted and also taking healthcare particularly for granted. Look, this is America. I am blessed to be here in the United States. It is it has been my life honor to be here, to love the United States, to start a family in the United States, to meet Americans who love the United States. And I love the United States. So it is what it is. God is the greatest. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. Shout out to our esteemed members. Dr. Luke, the GOAT. God bless you for the super chat. You are truly appreciated. God bless you, brother. Shout out to Jet, a moderator. Okay. God bless you, Jet. And back to esteemed members. I got to say shout out to Ellie. I got to say shout out to Sandra. I got to say shout out to Ingram. God bless you guys for being esteemed members. And now back to the moderators. Shout out to Jet. Shout out to C. Shelley. God bless you, C. Shelley. Shout out to Corey B. God bless you, Corey B. Also, Corey B did a super chat. Corey B gave a super chat today. God bless you, Corey B. Thank you so much. And I don't know where Mr. Busky has been. I hope he is all right. Busky Buckets is definitely missing up in the building. So anybody who knows how to reach Mr. Busky, tell him we miss his buckets in here in the chat room. So God bless you guys for tuning in. Rain Promo was in here too. God bless you. No reply. God bless you as well. Anybody who tuned in, man, God bless you guys. You guys are so awesome. One more time, shout out to the GOAT, Dr. Luke. Okay, I got to say this. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest. If you are in America, if you live in the United States, if you are American, or even if you are dreaming of coming into the United States, please make sure you come into the United States legally. And if you are already in the United States, please know how blessed you are to be in this land called the United States. It is truly the greatest country on the face of the earth. Look, I got to say this. Shout out to the veterans. Shout out to the military personnel. You guys protect the homeland. And shout out to the law enforcement officers. Shout out to ICE. Thank you for doing your federal duty. Shout out to everybody, man. Shout out to everybody. God bless you. And don't forget, it does not matter what you're going through today. Just stay strong. Believe God is your strength. Have faith. Let faith illuminate your path, okay? Don't throw in the towel right now. Just stay strong. Pray to God to give you the strength that you need to keep on going. Life is very, very hard, and sometimes you think you cannot keep going on. But I promise you, when it's dark, the darkest night, there's always a bright dawn waiting for you. If only you can wait. If only you can go through that darkness and see the light that is waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. So please stay strong. Never throw in the towel. Never quit. Never ever quit. Stay strong, man. It's just like when it's getting so hard, just know your time is close. Your time is near. All right. Please stay strong. All right. God is your strength. I love you guys. Each and every one of you guys. America is the greatest nation one more time. And we are blessed to be here. I didn't say Anders. Anders. God bless you for being here as well. He was here. I don't know if he's still here, but Anders. God bless you, Anders. Look, it is what it is. It is your boy Genesis. And this is the Genesis Show. God bless you guys. We will be back. And we have been streaming for 4 hours. It's a lot. It's a lot of time. So now I gotta probably would go get breakfast right now. I'm thinking about what do you guys think about Dunkin' Donut? Like the sausage, egg, and cheese croissant with the hot coffee and mocha with extra cream. I don't like sugar in my hot coffee with mocha and extra cream, so I don't get sugar. But I get extra cream though. What do you guys think about the sausage, egg, and cheese croissant? I don't know what you guys think about the sausage, egg, and cheese croissant this morning. It's Monday morning. Are you guys going to work? Are you guys going to do your work at home? Some people work from home. I don't know. Like, whatever you guys do, just make sure you stay productive, stay busy. An idle guy or an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Don't forget, don't keep idle. Make sure you are engaged. Okay, make sure you're engaged with your community, with your work, with your talent, with your duty, whatever you got to do, stay engaged. Okay, also, fathers, take care of your kids. Okay, fathers, please take care of your kids. All right, fathers, please take care of your kids. All right. Yes, it is your boy Genesis, and this is the Genesis Show, and I am signing out. I love you guys, man.